Thank you, Mark. Sorry about that, but I forgot it. You're live.
Good evening. Today is Tuesday, October 19th. So we'd like to welcome everyone to our board meeting. Board members present, although not in their seats, but they are present. We have members Wilson, Lessons, Jacobs, Holloman, Higgins, Donnelly, and myself, Bellamy. So we'd like to call our meeting to order. And we have a real special treat this evening. We have Kevlina and the Boy Scout troop number 170. They will do this portion of our flag salute. Present the colors. So please stand.
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was amazing. Thank you, Troop 170. Let's give them another hand. That brings us to our land acknowledgement and our opening statement. So whenever you're ready.
Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge with gratitude the Dena'ina people, past and present, who have lived on these lands since long before Anchorage was here. May we all be good stewards of these lands. Chanan.
Thank you. We'd like to welcome you to our meeting and thank you for attending and supporting the work of the Anchorage School District and this board. The board thanks students, parents, teachers, staff, school business partners, and the entire community for your investment in our district with your time, your talents, and your tax dollars. I'd like to remind everyone who is in the boardroom that you need to wear a mask that covers your mouth and your nose unless you have a waiver. And if you do not have a mask on, we are asking you to leave. So we will take a 5-minute recess until everyone is in compliance. Thank you for your patience. It appears that everyone is in compliance. I thank you for that.
Madam
Next.
President?
Yes, Member Darwin.
Thank you. And during our last meeting, Member Holloman raised a point of parliamentary
Member
procedure.
Donnelly, we need to approve the agenda and I will give you a.
This relates to the parliamentary procedure that we utilize in approving the agenda.
All right, I'll hear your comment.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. There was a point of order raised that asserted that under Robert's Rules of Order, that when there was a main motion on the floor and a member was recognized, they could not speak prior to moving an amendment. And I think that was not well taken, and it relates to how we conduct our business tonight. So I'd ask, there was the representation that there would be investigation of that.
Yes.
And a report back, and I would like that report at this time.
Thank you, sir. We do have a report. Member Holloman.
Yes, I was going to speak to it right after the agenda. In following up, I think I was in error, I believe, from the fact that several groups I've been in have that rule as a standing rule, but in looking through Roberts, while it sort of hints at it, it does not ever explicitly say that. So I would say that my objection was an error. I apologize for interrupting you during the last meeting on it.
Thank you, Member Holloman.
That said, I'd like to move we adopt the agenda as presented.
Madam President, I would like a ruling on it from the chair, because at that time you indicated that you agreed with the objection. So I think it's important that you actually rule on it. I have here a response from Jurassic Parliament, which is the contractor the school district uses on these issues, and they agree with my interpretation of rules that I was in order at the time.
If I recall correctly, Member Donnelly, I said I allowed you to do what you did. It wasn't a point of agreement or disagreement on my behalf, because I allowed you to do exactly what you did.
Well, Madam President, I have a transcript of what occurred at that time, if you'd like to refresh your memory.
I do not. I do not. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to approve the agenda?
I object. A procedural motion takes precedent, and we have a procedural matter before us over any regular business. So at that time, you ruled that, to quote, I did allow that so you can blame me. That implied that it was a proper objection. So
My comment.
you need to correct that at this time and specifically rule that I was in order.
Member Donnelly, my comment was to Mr. Holloman, who raised a concern, and I said to him, I allowed it. It's my fault.
Well, it wasn't your fault. I was in order.
Then and he just apologized for that.
Well, all I'm asking you is, as president, to actually rule on the point of order, the point of parliament procedure that was raised.
I still don't understand what it is you're trying to get me to say, Member Donnelly. I do not.
There was a point of procedure raised.
You raised a point of procedure.
No, actually, Member Holloman raised the point of procedure.
You're going back to the
I disagreed with it.
And you disagreed with it.
And I'm requesting that you rule on it at this time, formally rule on it.
Based on the information that was just provided to the board by Member Holloman, he corrected himself. And I think, does the board require anything else?
Well, as a member, I'm entitled to a ruling of the chair on a point of procedure.
Well, Member Donnelly, the rule, you and Member Holloman had a difference.
And as chair, you should rule on that difference and say which point of procedure, which
I accept Member Holloman's apology to you. So that means you were right. Is that what you want to hear? You were right?
Well,
based on what he found.
You need to rule on it. Yes, you need to rule one way or the other.
Okay, well, I'm not ruling on it because I do not believe that that is necessary. It has absolutely been cleared up that Member Holloman was incorrect. And I would, any other comments from the board on what is procedurally correct at this time?
Madam President, I would just call for the orders of the day.
Madam President, I'm not going to appeal the decision of the chair at this time because it seems pointless, but members are entitled to a formal ruling of the chair when points of parliamentary procedure are raised.
Thank you. Back to the order of the day. We have a motion on the floor to approve the agenda. Moved in second. Is there any opposition to approving the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda stands approved. And that leads us to item B, which is our Student Advisory Board report. Ellie, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so Student Advisory Board, or SAB, had their second meeting on October 12th, 2021 at 11:15 a.m. in the ASD Center in this boardroom. And it was our second meeting in the school year. During the meeting, we started by playing off a gathering activity called Big Boss and distributed SAB official zip-ups to new members. After we approved the minutes, we elected myself as the new SAB president, where I ran unopposed, which opened up the position of vice president for SAB members to run for next month. We then briefly went through school reports, the OSOG Region 4 representative report, school board report, and we had school board member Mr. Carl Jacobs attend, which was very awesome of him. And then after that, in our break, we touched back on the topic of the graduation regalia policy, where the overall preference of the group was option 3, which clarifies the wording around the use of letters and numbers, and it adds an allowance for headdresses instead of caps. Members then mixed with each other to discuss changes that they would have made and how their schools handled it and discussed it together as their own student governments. Finally, SAB discussed and endorsed a resolution from students at Diamond High School where they wrote about the current backpack ban happening at their school. Students are opposing this ban and asked for SAB's support, which was voted on and passed. The schools that attended the SAB meeting were South, Service, Diamond, Eagle River, Family Partnership, Bartlett, Betty Davis East, Chugiak, Polaris, Stellar, West, and Benny Benson. Student Advisory Board will be holding their next meeting on Tuesday, November 9th, 2021 from 8:15 a.m. to 10:15 a.m. where the middle schoolers will be joining us. And that is all.
Okay. Thank you and congratulations on your election. That's great. And that brings us to item C, which is our goal monitoring. We're now going to have our monitoring conversation regarding goal 2, and that is our math proficiency goal. And that goal is beginning September 2020, the percentage of students in grades 3 through 9 proficient in math on the state summative assessment. Currently, that assessment is PEAKS, will increase from 40% to 55% by May 2026. And we will also have a conversation around our interim goal number 2, the percentage of grade students in grades 3 through 9 at or above the math benchmark on interim adaptive assessments will increase from 48.4% in the spring of 2021 to 50% in spring of 22. So first, I want to assert that all of the components and in the report that the audience will see and in the report that the board was provided at our last meeting, we will look, all of the components in that report are present. And that basically means that the report clearly shows what is being monitored, in that the goal and the interim goal are identified. It shows data for the 3 previous reporting periods, the current reporting period, and the target reporting period. And finally, it shows, not finally, but it also shows the superintendent's evaluation of performance via the PEAKS and math growth. For PEAKS, the superintendent has evaluated below target. And for the interim goal 2.1, the superintendent has evaluated on target. It shows supporting documentation that evidences the superintendent's evaluation via the tables provided. And it shows what our next steps are. So with all items being present and in order, we're ready to begin having our progress monitoring conversation. The first part of the conversation is to dig into the data itself, with the latter part of the conversation being more forward focused. In other words, we'll begin with a series of questions, the who, the what, the why. In those categories of inquiry, the purpose, or given those categories of inquiry, the purpose is to understand the current reality of our students as compared to this goal. Once we are done with the who, the what, and the why, we will then move to the how. And this is a category of questions to hear what the superintendent has planned in response to the data. So with that conversation, logic, and model in place, the floor is now open for the board to engage in inquiry regarding our math proficiency goal. And so who has questions for the superintendent? Okay. Dr. Bishop.
Thank you. There was one update since the last time of providing the board the data. And if you can take a look at page 5, there, due to some questions, there was some interest in a request in understanding the changes in the numbers tested. And so if you look at this page on the bottom, that long chart, the N stands for the number of students tested over time. So you can see the change from 16, 17 into the latter years up to last year at a little over 9,000 in grades 3 through 9.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. Okay. Who wants to go first? So I guess I'll kick off. Dr. Bishop, we had, how are we including the monitoring of grade 9? I know that our adopted curriculum is K-8.
Sure, Madam President, that is a great question. And what we have is through, if you look at college and career life readiness, Algebra 2 is actually a target for there. So the gateway into Algebra 2 is through Algebra 1. In the inclusion model of access for students for high quality instruction is part of that, moving to best practices, and that's targeted as a strategy that is being used.
Okay.
For data for Algebra 1, we utilize course data from teachers' work and grades.
And I appreciate that. And I broke my first rule because I asked the how question first. But at the same time, I will, I'll watch that. So, but thank you, Dr. Bishop. Other questions? Member Les.
Thank you. I submitted a number of them, but I think one of the things that really struck out to me was if we think of our students as based on cohorts, in which we really didn't do in these charts, but I can draw lines across them. And what I noticed was that there were significant drops from the, I'm sorry, I'm looking at page 11,
Okay.
for the transition to middle school, and exacerbated over COVID. And it looks like maybe there was a pre-existing prior drop in the spring of 2018-19. You can see a drop in proficiency from elementary to the middle school years. And if you look at the, say, the 5th graders from 2018 to 2019, they become the 7th graders measured in 2021. And that's a more profound drop. And that holds true for the 6th graders transitioning to 8th grade. And I wonder if you could speak to whether that's a normal thing, that middle school is a hard transition and we have previously experienced drops in math proficiency. Did COVID exacerbate those drops in proficiency? And I guess I'm jumping ahead to the, what are we going to do about that?
Okay.
But I think that that's one of the data sets that really struck out to me, thinking about the real students who have been impacted by COVID and how we're going to move forward.
Sure. So that is a great question. And in looking at our students, to share these data were not presented in cohorts. We did not match students. Generally, when we are articulating cohorts over time, we only use match sets. So these just clearly, I don't want them to anyone to believe that this is actually a full set of data into the next year, because we'd not cohort match. These are just student groups in that given year. And I point that out because the student groups that are actually being assessed in those given years are quite different in the end. And that was one of the reasons why I put that number down there. And it's interesting, in all of the data that we are going to share today, when I say N, that's the number of students. But behind those scores and those students is a human body and a person that we want to send off into this world with the skills needed. And so I just wanted to share that. However, from my knowledge of education over the last 32 years, is that when there are major transitions from schooling schools, there generally is a drop, if you will, a little bit to get started. Now, those drops are generally minimal and not statistically significant, but they do occur. So when you look at them in numbers, you might, take a look, wow. But the statistical significance isn't as great as it's shown here. And I would caution this one specifically because of the N and the number. When we would need to look into further the students that weren't tested, who were they? And are those students different than the students that were being tested? So generally a number on a random selection, you could have a smaller number and it would be fine. But because these weren't randomly selected, they were actually the students who came to school, we would need to further look into that. But that was a good noticing piece. We would have to actually specifically answer that question, do a different type of data look with our teachers in schools to understand who the students were.
Thank you. Other questions? Did I see your hand, Member Donnelly?
I don't think I answered the final question, actually.
Oh, did you have a, okay.
I did want to say, yes, COVID had made everything bad anyway. So COVID and having schools closed down and absences and worrying about everything, every level of the organization, I would say that COVID has impacted. So that was your primary question. I would say yes. Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Highly impacted. Yeah.
Member Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam President. Most of our elementary schools use the new math curriculum, but we do have at least 5 schools that use a different, more traditional curriculum called Saxon Math. How are our Saxon Math schools doing?
Through the president to Member Donnelly, what we have before us in this monitoring is our collective look at all students in grades 3 through 9. I don't have specific schools for you. I can provide that at a later date.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Can you, Katie, you caught that request? Okay, thank you. Other questions on the data before you? Yes, Member Wilson.
So I was looking at page 12, the map growth for grades 3 through 9, and partially a comment, partially a question. I'm looking at 6th grade, and 6th grade seems to be above the 50th percentile for both the winter and the spring. I would be curious to know if there's what the factors are involved, and obviously you couldn't answer this tonight, but what the factors are involving 6th grade having the higher scores.
Through the president to Member Wilson, they certainly do poke out at you as green and red. And I do want to share that winter of 2020, which was just last winter, and then spring, what we're seeing here, if you take a look at the numbers at 44% and 35%, you'll notice 6th, 7th, 8th grades all have very low numbers being tested. And if you recall in the winter, the only 6th graders in school at that time were elementary students that attend, 6th graders that attend elementary schools. So the other part of that data set, middle schools were not in session, so that could have some influence on it. We'd have to take a further look. But if you see the percentage of students are pretty low there. So understanding that if we were to add all of our 6th graders in, how would that change? And then again, who were the students present and not? But I believe it links back to the question from Member Lessons, which provides some evidence there about changing and moving from transition of elementary to middle school.
Okay, Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. Question for Dr. Bishop. the assessment, the overall progress assessment, and then the current figure where it falls in the color legend, similar to the last review session that we had. Those don't necessarily align. I was thinking it might be helpful to for the superintendent to go over that discrepancy.
Sure. So this is in demonstrating, just to share, if you take a look at that's 36.8%, and that was our math proficiency on peaks with all of the grade ranges. And at 36.8%, if you take a look at our goal at 55, that trajectory above it is there. So it is in this kind of tan line, not quite orange or green. However, when we assessed at the below target, when you look at peaks and you take a look at the trend over time, we haven't moved much, but we're on definitely a different scale of moving downward there. So the understanding of, are we really close to our target and how can we get there? Because it's all those grade levels, it's very difficult to, if there was one grade level and one skill that we had to change, that is basically more easily influenced. So a group of teachers could work together and understand, and this is just so many classrooms across so many different standards. And so the standards in grades 3 through 9 are so spread, and the being out of school for so long, I think that kids were affected math. So I placed us at in that orange section for below target, not necessarily near target, just an understanding of the significance of changing 3 through 9 collectively, as well as the many goals and information that students need to know and able to be proficient on a statewide test like that. And again, because of the assessment, we don't know what it quite is yet. It's changing. Now on this one, I was confident in our target. If you took our last spring, we hit the target of about 48.5%, although it was only about 9,000 students, so quite a small amount of the 3rd through 9th graders who took that final assessment. The target for the MAP growth is only 1.5%. So the confidence in the work that we're doing now, the efficacy of classrooms and teachers and students, I believe we're on target to make that 1.5% gain in the MAP growth, because we're better at targeting what it is we need to know and move forward. And I'll build confidence in peaks once we understand what the new NWEA assessment is going to look like. Great questions.
So I have a question. Among the groups of students that are that you referenced with that are performing on or near target, what do you attribute that to?
Excellent teaching. Students that are progressing in math and have reached those target goals are picking up on the skills that were needed. And again, if you look at MAP growth, I really share that we had such a range of programs last year in regard to what students received. And there was frustration from, I would say, on the school side of students not logging in and not showing up to class. There was a frustration on the student side for not feeling as though they received the support they wanted. There was frustration on the parent side because sometimes they couldn't sit aside, next to their students. But on the assessment of the students that did make proficiency, I do want to share that they are the students who generally make proficiency in our school district. And generally speaking, it is the non-economically disadvantaged students. So students who are not of poverty, and generally students who are white. And so I do want to share that we do have a demographic that does exceptionally well in ASD. And to meet the goal of all students have success, we're going to have to engage our students, take a look at our practices, how we reach out to families and support students where they are and move them along, because they're already starting from a place that is not of proficiency.
Okay. Thank you. Member Lessons.
Thank you. I'd like to follow up on that question. The page 4 data certainly stuck out to me about showing significant disparities between who is doing well or better and who is not doing so well. But I did notice that the only peaks growth measured in these 2 data sets was for our SPED students. And I was curious about your opinion about what accounts for the slight uptick in the percentage of students who measured as proficient in this group. What worked well?
Sure. That's a great question. And I'm going to enter it with caution simply because about 22% of the students in this category were not tested. So then we would have to look at who then were the students who were assessed and who weren't assessed. We did have a large portion of our special education students not desire to return, so they remain online. I would, without evidence, I would really have to, again, look into the individual students, but I would say that face-to-face teaching is impactful to students. And the only students that were tested were the ones then that came back to in-person face-to-face learning. But again, I would caution that assessment in the caption of the assessments. And it's a pretty significant amount, 22% less, about one fifth of those that were.
Okay. All right, I'll go to my next question then. So there were a number of kids who did not take the test. What are we using to, what other kind of data points or data are we using for those kids if they didn't take the test?
Sure. That's a great question. And data that we use all the time, which is really classroom information. And so if a student does not want to assess, and frankly, it's statutorily allowable to not engage in high stakes level assessments such as peaks, as well as you can opt out of district-wide assessment. So what the MAP growth and other assessments that we give district-wide provide us is really data on groups of students. Teachers utilize that for, these are the kids in my class. What do I know what they know, and how do I move them forward? So for specific students, it's just not giving you specific students to their parents about where they are in comparison, because certainly the MAP has a comparison nationally to our state, to our district, to every other third grade in my class. I mean, it really drills it down. So we're missing out on the ability to take a look and see, how many students are in this set and how can we move them forward, to take a look at how we're doing collectively. But generally, data like these, like peaks, a statewide performance is not really necessarily, although it gives a student report, it really is for high stakes. It's for like the state requirements. So I would say that if we didn't have to take peaks, we wouldn't. But it is a state requirement so that it takes a look at schools in general. What we're doing for students is what we've always done to understand student growth is teachers. Teachers create assessments themselves. There's assessments with their materials. Some of them like to do that. There is observation assessment. There's communication with the student. So we use quite a bit, but those won't roll up to this report. But quite often it's just a part of a classroom to have assessment. And so if parents are missing this, or if they missed a time, the classroom is the best place to understand how a student's doing.
Okay. Member Holloman.
Yes, I'm gonna say as a former person that sat through faculty meetings, anytime you got a chart with a lot of red and orange, it was always frightening because that generally the message was going to come that we need to teach harder. And that often meant really bearing down on the content, bearing down on the students you wanted to see improvement in. And it is possible to take students that struggle with math and actually turn them into people that hate math really badly before they ever leave us. What I'm hoping is that we have a process where we look at teachers that are working with groups of kids that are struggling and succeeding and incorporating that across the school and across our district in particular. And I know the right curriculum taught with fidelity means a great deal. I have a certain level of belief in that, but I also have a belief that if we have a successful classroom in one of our buildings, that's something that we can transfer more readily within our district. And I hope that's part of what we're doing to try to make this more green and more blue in the future.
Yeah, Mr. Holman, that just those comments. I don't think there was a question there, but those comments are great, and I would purport that none of these data is an attack on anyone's effort. To say that we have to teach harder, I don't know how much harder we could work in this district, given COVID and everything else. So this certainly isn't about hard. We have hard workers. What data tell you about a student? Like, it isn't made up by the school district. It is literally standards that children then are held accountable for in their lifetime, and their skills that were designed in standards, designed by educators. So the Alaska State Standards did not come from a district. They came from teachers creating, those things of what they believe kids will be successful if they know this, this, and this. And so how do we know if they know that? Well, you use assessments, and hopefully assessments just guide then how we can look at our classrooms. And exactly what you shared is hopefully a place where we can get to that when data are not they're value neutral, not really value driven, where you can say, man, what happened at this school? Something's going on there. Just like you shared of, wow, something's happened in this classroom. What's happening there? The ability to discuss and to talk about successes as well as our areas of growth will bring, I would say, collaboration to staff. It has me in my professional life to understand what I don't do well and what I can do better and what somebody else does better. And what do I do to get, my kids performing like your kids? Because your kids seem to be doing better. So I think that for me, the orange, yellow, green, that's just signaling kind of where we are. But if you look at what is the purpose of this, it drills right back to kids. It drills right back to where we want students to be. And it's we educators who they have the most time with. The GIMBA, the value added, is at the classroom level. And so what you stated about teachers finding the best things and sharing them is absolutely part of this process for students to gain proficiency. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Question? Kelly? And then I'll go.
I'm still on. One of the things that I've most appreciated about this fall has been the opportunity to go visit schools and see teaching and learning in action. And it's remarkable to go from one classroom to the next and see how a second grade teacher is teaching his or her curriculum and a fourth grade teacher. And so I've seen the new math curriculum in action. One of the things that struck out to me is that it's very verbal. And I think for a student with exceptional verbal skills, this is an area where they can flourish. But I also noticed, for example, in one classroom where there were a lot of SPED supports, they had worked on to help provide an extra lift. They had intervened by underlining, the numbers within the word problem to say, hey guys, we're looking at the numbers here. Are there areas that the new math curriculum will be a challenge for some of our students? I'm thinking about our English language learners and our SPED students. And how are we going to make that less of an obstacle. There are lots of things I like about the new math curriculum too, but that's something that I'm wondering about.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that the language in math programs or science programs or anything like that absolutely is a challenge. The ELL department, as well as the special education department, Indian Ed, all participated in the selection of this series. And some of the things when I asked, thank you for giving your questions earlier, when I asked about the MTSS process and what supports there are, they really shared some strategies and information about moving through those through MTSS, and I wrote them down, but I'm on this right now. Let me try to find it, but. So actually what they shared was the ELL supports are actually available right in the multi-tiered system support framework. So the design in mind with how the support is built in, and probably maybe for special education or some other things is what you saw, part of that. The program strengths that were chosen in regard to the team that had chosen this particular textbook. I'll have to find those as well. But the ELL, Title IX, SPED, they all were in the review, the pilot, and the implementation of the program. And I might need to get, they specifically wrote out for me the items that were presented. So I'll have to find where I placed those. Here they are. Sorry about that. So the Math Review Advisory Committee, and I want to read this because they spent a lot of time putting this together, were presented with the program as it was reviewed. And there were language supports for ELL and struggling readers within the adoption, differentiation of supports, instructional strategies, varied assessments, parent supports, letters, PowerPoints, videos. They have cultural responsiveness component, hands-on activities for modeling, different pedagogy styles, so different models to deliver the information to kids, as well as a student handbook, vocabulary cards, games, and self-reflection, and that these were also available online. So I wanted to specifically share that because, that was back in the adoption, some of those things. But to your point, a brand new year of an implementation of any program is a struggle. It's learning something new that I'm going to have to do. And it's not just a platform on your iPhone, for an app that takes you a little bit to figure out where things are. Sometimes whole programs are laid out differently. Sometimes they have a different structure of how to present. And so teaching and learning is working through the year, started last year on the adoption, but also in just small chunks of delivering professional development. But it's just what we call just in time, because there technically hasn't been time for mass learning of anything due to COVID and other things. So I think the next training is November 11th. But for sure, this is new. The math is not new. The content is new. The presentation of it is new. And that's what's on the adult side of it. So hope that helps in answering the questions. And sorry, I fumbled through. I wanted to specifically know those things, so I didn't want to misquote them.
So just to follow up, so where are you finding that principals and teachers need the most support in with staff development for
Yeah, I was going to say actually, and just having more people, more so than this. So really, I think it's just going to be in time. The expectation this semester was not to be a master of our craft, especially with something brand new. When I asked about the professional development, it has been in chunks since last February to different grade levels. But the best supports are really going to be job embedded, that I'm supported when I need it in my classroom. as I'm teaching it. And so through the department chairs that we have in middle school, as well as the instructional coaches at the elementary school, we're trying to build capacity into people to support other people in the jobs we do every day.
Okay, thank you. Looks like Member Higgins.
Thank you. I've been quiet for a long time, though.
Yeah, you were.
You want to be some credit there. I just want to join with Board Member Lesson's comment in regards to the reading skills required with the math, and because I heard this from some teachers and principals that I'm talking to. I recall everyday math. I'm sure that's not an unknown word because I know Matt Sue pushed it out because it was so language intensive. And right now it seems like it's more complex than that. I'm listening to second grade teachers where kids are not really up with the alphabet because they missed a year and a half for the most part. And so the reading is really falling behind, and the reading then is going to drive the math further behind. And it's going to be catching up with one before you catch up with the other. I know what is needed helps, but that's a limited time compared to what you're doing during the entire school week. If you're leaving them behind on the training that's going on, that's what I'm hearing from the concerns coming from teachers, is that it's a heavy language intensive math program. And so all these kids, I think back to 2009, all the kids that are suffering from having reading issues, different groups, that they're going to have the same problem in math now. And we're going to go the same way like we did 12 years ago. We're going to go back to that same issue. That's my concern right now, and is that the selection. I've talked to the people that participated in the selection process. They felt like there wasn't a good selection other than the one they went with. So at least I believe we got, honest assessment. This was the one they selected. But it bothers me that we have been through this with the public and staff before about reading intensive math and trying to tie it in together, and the outcomes were so bad, and the public reactions and the scores going down really made a big difference. And I know the reading level probably for the math is equal to the reading to the grade they're in. It's supposed to be appropriate, so that's going to make it that much more difficult too when they're catching up in that line. So I'm just my reservation here is I can't help everyday math comes out because that was such a long nightmare that the school district went through of public concerns, teachers' concerns, and parents and kids. I'm just concerned about the heavy intensive language skills and how that might impact not just the scores this year. I know there's issues about getting enough training, but when you roll out a program, that's going to be pretty common. But I am concerned about the impact in the next few years where we're still trying to catch up with the reading to make up for the last 2 years where we had limited school and the growth wasn't there as much, that we're going to put math in that same category. That's where my one concern's at.
Yeah, would you like me to?
Yes.
So, there are concerns, and I'm glad you talked to the teacher to say, wow, they're all like this now. But a majority of them are. So there wasn't a better option. I think that the team of teachers who were on the selection chose the best. I was not there. I have a different experience with math as a math teacher, specifically. I think that the board did at the time of creating these outcomes took that into account. Therefore, you see the urgency in reading as an access skill that should, your statements alone should telegraph the importance of reading, that it is an access skill to everything nowadays. And so I believe that the board's goals reflect that we need 80% of our kids reading on grade level very quickly as we can, because that does affect access to other things. The goals for this are not as steep as a curve, if you will. I think that the math that can be of access is in this program as well. You will have just those fundamental automaticity things that we're going to continue to teach, and those don't necessarily take the English language, but then the problem solving and the other kinds of computing we want them to gain, and they're going to come with time. But to your point, the importance of reading in our school district and teaching our kids to gain those skills is highly important to really transition over into math. This math program does have individual supports that students can work on their own for what they need at the time. Hopefully that'll be in support and used by parents as well as kids to support teachers in the classroom, because while we're responsible for some things, it does take practice and supports from home as well, just in that just the behaviors of good learning and moving forward. So no disagreement. It certainly is, has words in it. You can open up a book and see that our math book has a lot of words to it. But I would say that our work in our school district reflects that understanding in regard to really building competency and capacity for kids, competency in reading, so they build their capacity to do other things as well. That's a excellent point, not disagreeable. I wasn't around with the prior reading series 10 years ago, but I am familiar with it.
Thank you. So is algebra the goal for students by grade 9? And then how do we know they're on track to? If so, how do we know they're on track?
Sure. I'd ask, do I have a math specialist in the room here? Miss Amanda Barr, can you share a little bit about our goals for that? And the math in 6th, 7th, and 8th, I know does lead to an ability in those skills to be able to successfully take Algebra 1 as a freshman. But we have more grade levels than freshmen taking algebra. So if you could, what is the trajectory that the expectation for students for Algebra 1?
Through the president, the goal for, as Dr. Bishop stated, the standards are specifically written in middle school for grades 6, 7, and 8, with the intention of preparing students for Algebra 1 or the equivalent in high school. So that has been our benchmark goal for 9th grade.
Okay. All right. And the MAP assessment actually can give you MAP growth and can give us feedback as to those readiness skills for Algebra 1.
Okay, great. So I'm not seeing any more hands for the who, the what, and the why. So what about the how? How are we going to, how are we support? I guess it's how are teachers and principals supported to support the goal itself and implement the curriculum? That's one of the questions I have.
Sure. So if we take a look at next steps, and again, I did want to share again, as we did with the reading, a board member mentioned to me once, well, teachers said they're not doing this and they haven't been given this, and it isn't amount of let's not go do that. It was just the expectation for your goals, given everything that's happening in the district with COVID, was that we would know the goals this semester. That was the bar that I placed out there, and I specifically designed it that way so that we can get started. It took us weeks to really get on step due to the COVID changes, the absences, the unfilled positions. So we're working in multiple areas. And so for the goals, again, my expectation was not to, what am I doing in my class? How am I getting this done? All that, like drilling it right down. It was, do I know what the goals are? Do I know what the district's goals are? And as we move forward this year, we're taking a look at them to understand, okay, if those are the goals, what does my school look like? And then what does my school look like? What does my classroom look like? And where do I fit in that bigger picture of the goals? And so just in understanding that and the strategies outlined by the math team really are in different areas to be able to move forward. So it's in MTSS, the data discussions, professional learning, instruction, and curriculum. And then there's action steps, like what is actually going to happen to be able to prepare. And this is all in addition to a brand new curriculum. In preparing for the new curriculum, there were some asynchronous Canvas courses and just trying to understand where people are. There was a request for differentiation in supporting of teachers because some teachers found it pretty quick. I can go do it. Others needed additional time. February and August, we provided professional development. Again, on November 11th, which is our next in-service day, we're having 3 hours of professional development on the math, again, to be prepared. But if we go to the general 30,000-foot view, the goal for students is to increase mathematical proficiency, for them to understand their math. So it's important for me when we talk that there isn't an interest in raising scores. I mean, changing a score is putting in a new number on a data sheet. What we want this to represent is that students actually gain knowledge and change their learning behavior, where they're learning more, so that they will have access and opportunity to complete that Algebra 1. The instructional focus will just understand the classroom mathematics with integrity to ensure that evidence-based mathematics is used and supports students. Understanding the multi-tiered system of support. So when a child is not learning with what we call a tier 1, what comes next, and what's the infrastructure to help me and the students succeed in my class? Individual teachers, we need teams of schools to really support this. Individual teachers, just in their class with that many students with that many levels. Our system isn't designed that way to be able to have one single impact. So the multi-tiered system of support is to wrap around those services. And then the last one was what I touched on earlier, which was just inclusive practices to be sure that students have access to the curriculum at the grade level so that they understand what it is. Many times what we do is we have to balance having them access to the kinds of high quality conversations in math or reading or science, at the same time giving them direct skills to improve their skills. But if we do one or the other, students either can get lost either way. They'll be lost in not understanding, or they'll be lost and they'll never have access to what's actually expected of them at their grade level. So I know that was a long way to answer the questions, but those are really the supports. But just to understand, it is going to come at a time when, like I said, I use the term just in time for when we're ready for it and we can actually take it in. And I would say right now it's at the level of the school level, understanding where the needs are with the instructional coaches and the department chairs, really helping define that.
This is another follow-up question that's been percolating, and I think I had pre-submitted something to this effect. Could you just, for me as a board member, for the other people in the room, for anybody else who might be listening, could you explain how the math curriculum, which I understand to be, we purchased it from Curriculum Associates, how does that work with what I know I see my own kids doing with iReady math, like on a device? What's the purpose of iReady on a device? And is that a part of the standard part of the school day? Is it a supplemental addition to the Curriculum Associates in
yes and yes, it could be both.
and do all students have access to that at school? I think those are sort of the. Sure. Could you just talk a little bit about what it is that we have before us?
Sure. So in addition, and I might need to do another shout out, but in addition to the actual instruction in the classroom with the tier 1, which is what the core what a third grader should know. The iReady program actually provides a drill down. Kids, take this dynamic assessment initially, and it actually drills down to a program to fill the gaps of what they see that the program actually targets the gaps that children are missing. So it can move them along. And that's what I mean by that, the classroom has many different levels of students, and it can take them to the next level individually. I'll have to get with Amanda. The goal is for all classrooms to have access to that, but we really are not asking for any more than 45 minutes of that iReady work to be done in school. To Member Holloman's point, for too long, sometimes even for our most advanced student, what we thought we should do, instead of moving them up a grade level, sometimes we had them take 2 maths, and there's sometimes a way to get even the brightest kids not to, that love math. If you give them 2 maths, sometimes they don't like it. So, it's really targeted. They can use it at home. It can be an at-home practice. It can be an in-school. The goal is to use it for the MTSS model in school. And the beauty of it is it shouldn't be a time waster. It's actually specifically targeted to the skills in which the kids, the computer's picking up that they are weak in. So it'll give them practice in that while the teacher can continue to teach to grade level standards as well as, provide additional supports. But in data in Project Red, they did demonstrate that short-term 15 to 20 minute computerized assessments or computerized tutoring is actually highly efficient for filling gaps. So it's actually research-based.
May I follow up real quick? Sure. I know I've asked a lot of questions. This is, again, sort of technical. One of the problems that has surfaced in my conversations at schools is a bandwidth issue. Like, not everybody can use their devices at the same time because maybe there's not enough bandwidth to do.
That's good. I'm
what
going
we're supposed to be doing.
Get that shout out to Mr. Fleckenstein
Talk about
on bandwidth.
So we do monitor that, and I'm not seeing anything peak over 80% in any of our schools at this time. And so I would be, if you have additional information and you could provide that, I certainly would follow up on that. We have the ability to turn that up if we need to. It's not something that we would hold back on. And so if you know of a need, please let me know, and I'd be happy to follow up on it.
And then the second technical question was really thinking about our youngest learners, K1, 2, who I assume are all using Chromebooks. I was in a classroom yesterday and watched kids kind of fumble around. They didn't know a backspace key. They didn't know where the dot was. They were hunting and pecking to try to log themselves in. Is there a way that we could use iPads? Is that something that would be more user-friendly for the youngest learners in our schools, or are we sticking with the Chromebooks that we have? Because that's what we have.
I'm going to give a shout out again to our technology person.
There is an ongoing discussion about sort of the earliest grades, pre-K, K1, and 2. Right now, if you look at our one-to-one initiative, that really has been a target at 3 through 12. We do use Chromebooks for 3 through 12. That's the same device that children are assessed on and use throughout the district. There is a discussion right now around, is that the appropriate device at the earliest ages? And so we are engaged with elementary education and a group of folks to start looking at, are there other options like iPads or tablets that might be more appropriate at those age ranges? And to sort of preempt that discussion or to get ahead of that, we've also at the same time applied for a grant, the federal grants that are available right now, to help be able to purchase some of those devices as we make a decision on what those devices should be. So hopefully that helps.
I would say probably the one they're most proficient on is their parents' phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, great questions. But sorry,
Member Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam Superintendent, prior to the majority of the board getting elected, we had a lot of discussions around the math curriculum adoption and the utilization of Saxon math, the more traditional program. And about 3 years ago, Dr. Stock, the deputy superintendent, did an analysis of our Saxon schools versus our top demographically advantaged regular schools. And it came back that the Saxon schools were at least doing as good as those schools, in some cases better. But when it came time to choose math curriculums to do a pilot program, the committee that was appointed refused to do a Saxon pilot program. And in the analysis of it, one of the main comments there, reasons, was it wasn't Common Core enough. I remember that quote. And yet it was very successful. And then we subsequently had a discussion of possibly trying to move some of our schools to Saxon. And at that time, the Saxon publication was changing. And you had raised that it was going to be difficult to get Saxon textbooks possibly. Well, I subsequently confirmed that the homeschool versions of Saxon textbooks are going to remain completely available. And they're very successful in homeschooling, folks. They're very popular, very successful. So I just want to say, if we run into problems with this current curriculum, we have a viable option right at our fingertips. It's proven in schools we have right now. It's proven by homeschools, Saxon math. And we know we can get those textbooks now. So I think we might want to be flexible and consider maybe moving that direction, maybe incrementally even.
Noted.
And we do have your requests for those schools who are using Saxon math, so we'll get that back to you. I guess not seeing any other hands or questions. Moving forward, I guess you will bring forth any resources that are needed as we continue to implement the curriculum and so I guess it's not a question, it's just a request that as we move forward and as we look at the data, if something is missing, whatever you determine that to be, you will bring it forth if more resources needed.
Mm-hmm. Madam President, that's correct. And I would say in my initial assessment of the first quarter of school, it certainly is something that we having a difficult time with. It's actually human resources at this time. Mm-hmm. So that's really impeding. When I visit classrooms and talk with principals, it's about, I could do more, but I'm pulled, 100 different ways. So understandably, but absolutely we'll bring that forward at the next, as well as any changes in the next round of monitoring math. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Seeing no further questions, I thank the board for your questions, your time. Now that brings us to our public comment section on our agenda. And we have people in person. Before we get started, there is a sheet near the door that says welcome to the ASD Center. And there are some rules there. We provide 2 opportunities for the public to speak to us. And so if you have those people who have signed up, will be given the opportunity to a 3-minute time slot to speak to us. The board has the testimony in excess of the first hour will be heard at the end. And I think we should be able to get everyone that signed up today within the first hour. We have more people signed up, so we'll see. We'll do our best. So the school board welcomes the public to observe and contribute to our meetings through testimony. To be productive, our meetings must be structured and civil. ASD conducts public meetings under Robert's Rules of Order, a set of rules for orderly meetings that have been used since the late 1800s. The rules require the board and the public to be civil and respectful of each other's opinions and statements. Here are a few requirements. Do not attack a member's or a speaker's motives. Speakers may point out what he or she believes to be a natural consequence of a board action, but may not engage in speech that personally attacks others. We ask that you refrain from disturbing the meeting, which means no cheering, applause, or outbursts. And we ask that unless you are testifying, that you be polite to the board and other speakers. Attendees will not be permitted to interrupt the business of the school board. Also, no profanity or foul language. There's no place in the public meeting of our board for profanity or cussing. As stated earlier, please keep your masks on at all times, including during your testimony. Your mask must cover your mouth and nose unless you have a medical waiver. No waving of signs, flyers, or posters. If you have handouts that you wish to share with the board, please give them to Ms. Grant, who is seated next to my left. As the president of the board, it is my duty to enforce these rules of civility and decorum. As such, I have the authority to rule any speaker out of order for violating these rules and others. Further, I will have removed from the meeting anyone who does not heed these rules and fails to conduct themselves in a civil manner. And with that, we are going to call our first speaker in person. We have Heidi Sakata. Did I say it right, Heidi? Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Heidi Sakata, and this is my 23rd year with ASD. I'm here to advocate for teachers and principals and indirectly for students. Over the past 6 years, I've watched the steady decline of ASD's leadership in their decision-making. Decisions are made all the time without talking to those of us that are in the classrooms, those of us that are on the ground, those of us who work with the students. There's many examples of this, but I want to focus on the one that has become almost insurmountable at this point in time. I don't know if you're aware of it, but this year, somebody decided that they should purge the subsystem. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of subs were purged out of the subsystem with the rationale that they didn't sub last year. Well, no kidding. We didn't have school last year. For 6 months, we had no school. And when we came back, we had 3 months. Subs were told, you got to go into the classroom. Kids can't be vaccinated. You may not be vaccinated. ASD's mitigation procedures were not sound. They changed decisions on a regular basis. So a lot of people didn't sub out of their own safety. And yet ASD decided, we should purge them. Let's get rid of them. We didn't talk to teachers. We didn't talk to principals. I needed to be out of my classroom this year. I put in my request for a sub 6 days before I needed to be out. I personally contacted 32 people and asked them to come and sub in my classroom. 26 responded to me and said, no, I can't. The only reason I was able to get out of the building that day that I needed to be out was because my principal was willing to step up for me. We have one half-time super sub in our building for 29 certificated people that may need to be out on a regular basis, for family members, for children, for illnesses. One half-time super sub. That's not acceptable. That's no good. ASD says we want to be symptom-free. But if I can't get a sub and I feel like garbage, I feel obligated to be in my classroom for my students. I'm not going to stay home. My kids need to have a steady person who knows them and who can have continuity for them in the day. Without a sub, I can't do that. ASD, I believe, is aware of this. I think leadership's aware of it. But they've done nothing to change this. There's no incentive to sub. There's no willingness to reactivate those. No willingness to say, hey, we'll waive the fees. Come on back. They haven't contacted. They haven't aggressively recruited. They've done nothing except leave us out to dry. Our principals are tasked in trying to fill this. We are tasked. This has to stop. You guys have got to support us and get subs. You have to.
Thank you, Heidi. Next, we have Tessie, Canada. Welcome, Tessie. You have 3 minutes.
For me, this is not about politics or even a contract. This is about the physical and emotional well-being of teachers and the students we serve. Decisions on policies have consequences. When we were forced to return to in-person education without a vaccine last year, I got sick 3 weeks to the day of return and lost a month of my life to COVID. The CDC and science have not changed. However, to deal with the severe staffing shortage that was caused by your policies, a change of quarantine for asymptomatic individuals has contributed to a typhoid Mary situation in my classroom and at my school, as positive parents have refused to keep their asymptomatic children at home and refused testing. The callous disregard for my life, every teacher connected to my room, my students, and our families is unconscionable. We now have over 6 teachers positive and more are testing. Countless students are going home sick. Worse, we are on the precipice of mixing classrooms to provide WIN groups for 30 minutes a day. Do the benefits really outweigh the potential of harm for 30 minutes? Can't we provide similar lessons in the same classroom and centers and be more safe? We're considering dividing classrooms into 2 groups to disperse when a teacher is sick because specialists are no longer enough to cover for the lack of subs. This will create class sizes between 30 to 40 students in elementary. There will be no mitigation, no teaching to fidelity, no ability to teach according to the pacing guides. So far, we have used specialists as subs, but this prevents teachers from receiving their contractual planning time and sets up a situation where we have to teach for 7 hours straight with only 15 to 30 minutes of break. This does not follow any OSHA industry standards I have ever seen. At what point are we deemed critical? If you treat people like machines, you should expect them to break. The inference that we are not dedicated or somehow abusing sick leave questions our integrity and is appalling. In spite of the dangers, I have shown up every day for 2 years to support my fellow teachers and provide lessons for students who have had an utter arrested development during online teaching. And they have done the same for me. We have international teachers on J-1 visas that are teaching without a contract and only receiving sub-pay. They could leave tomorrow, but we haven't because of their dedication to us and our students. We cannot continue with this farce of business as usual. It is unsustainable.
Thank you, Tessie. Next, we have Barb Clark. Welcome, Barb. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Barb Clark, a 21-year ASD educator. I speak tonight on behalf of the AEA Board of Directors. A hefty body of research shows that 3 things correlate most strongly with student success: a highly skilled educator in their classroom, their class size, and the family involvement in their education. The data demonstrate that there is no purchased program, no set curriculum, and no pedagogy that at all approaches the effect of these 3 factors. Of these 3, the first 2 are things over which you have a great deal of control. At present, ASD has approximately 100 teaching positions open and about 300 positions overall. It is imperative to the strength of ASD's workforce that we settle our contracts quickly and fairly. The school board needs to treat it as priority 1 to provide compensation and working conditions sufficient to attract a cadre of new educators and to retain every one of the seasoned educators we still have and any we hope to hire. Anything less, anything that drags out or sours negotiations, creates a further distraction from this district's main mission, the success of its students. Last Wednesday, the Fed raised its estimate of average inflation for this year to 4.2%. Do you believe that the district's offer of 0, 0, and 0% adequately takes that reality into account? No ASD bargaining unit currently has a settled contract with 0, 0, 0. No district across Alaska has settled a contract at 0, 0, 0. As it rebuilds its workforce in a tight labor market post-pandemic, private industry is certainly not offering 0, 0, 0. AEA's recent survey data on the sentiment of your teaching staff displayed next to me is catastrophic. Only 20% feel good about their jobs, and less than 3% feel fantastic about their jobs. Educators need several reasonable and possible things in order to feel respected and heard and to ensure student success. We need the academic flexibility to meet the diverse learning needs of the students we know by name and know how to engage. We need adequate planning time and grading time, especially during COVID. We need ready access to our sick and leave time with the trust and respect from the district that we are fully able to manage our time professionally. Any attempt to separate AEA from the remarkably efficiently run healthcare plan with which 94% of our membership tell us they're happy is, in effect, a threat to AEA members' well-being. Please, let's focus on what's in front of us. Let's settle our contract, both contracts, put this distraction behind us, and refocus our efforts and our energy.
Thank you, Barb. Next, we have Corey Sorry, Corey. I know exactly what your name is. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, President Bellamy. Just to start with, 3 minutes is never enough.
I know.
I have more to say, but thank you. Thank you to the board. I have testimony here, but like has happened in the past, I feel it's kind of mute. I'd like to say I'm really impressed that school board members are getting out into the buildings and impressed about what you're seeing and sharing in the experience, what it looks like, sounds like, and feels like out in our schools. I shared an email with you guys earlier that covered recent survey data we took in the last 2 weeks on the sentiment of your teaching staff. And Ms. Barb Clark just covered that as well. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of work to do. Our educators are working diligently every day on behalf of our students and families. And those of us who are not in the classroom, we really need to step it up and see what we can do to support them. We also need to support our ESPs who are also working without a contract. Next to me, I want to review some survey data that we took in terms of class size, because we keep talking about sentiment, and we also like to look at some of the other data. I want to highlight in that other testimony, in the prior testimony by Barb, all research consistently demonstrates student success can be summarized by 3 consistent attributes. Every classroom has a highly qualified teacher, low class size, and parent involvement. Well, we can control 2 of the 3. We can control every classroom has a highly qualified teacher, and we can control the size of our classes. I was shocked in polling the membership that 22% of our elementary classes have 26 to 30 students, and 5.5% reported class sizes of 31 to 15 students. That was 39 educators who have class sizes 31 to 35 in our elementary schools. And 5%, 37 educators have more than 35 students. And this includes specialists. Secondary educators reported 23% of classes have 26 to 30 students. Over 41% of our secondary classes, 208 classes, have 30 or more students. And 20%, 97 classes, have 35 students. I know we're working hard to hire educators, but when we talk about data, we have to put this in the context of everything that we're doing in our schools. It's an amazing battle we are fighting every day. I just want to say I appreciate your efforts, and I look forward to continue working together.
Thank you, Corey. Next, telephonically, Rihanna Gay. Is Rihanna Gay? We're not sure if she's telephonic.
She's not online.
Okay, not online. Okay, we'll come back to her. John Dykstra. John Dykstra, welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Board. Dr. Bishop, my name is John Dykstra. I am not only a teacher, but a parent of a junior at West and a senior at Alaska Middle College. I'm immensely appreciative of all their teachers the last 13 years, and I would not have wanted to raise them anywhere else. That being said, myself, I've been here. I started as a substitute teacher in 1998. I'm now in my 17th year as a licensed teacher, 6 in elementary, 11 in middle school. I've dedicated a good portion of my adult life to this district and its students and families. After all these years, I still enjoy my students. I believe I created a welcoming, inclusive classroom environment that engages kids of all abilities. There isn't a day that goes by that they don't make me laugh out loud. I always thought I'd be a lifer, meaning 25 years, but I'm really looking forward to 20 because I'm not sure much longer I can do this. When I watch these negotiations online, I'm just sickened. I feel like the ASD negotiators come out with an adversarial position, and I don't understand what we've done to deserve this. And a 0% raise for 3 years is unconscionable. As it is, I drive Uber 4 nights a week or mornings so I can support my family. That's 3/4 of the way up the pay scale with no outstanding debts other than my mortgage and my car payment, let alone how I'm going to pay for my kids to go to college. None of us got into this to get rich, but I mean, I just read today, even Social Security is raising 6% COLA for the recipients. And you know, this current economy, again, I'm looking at career options because I just don't know how much longer I can do this. I've been in the trenches for the last 2 years. I volunteered to come back in January with a student teacher. And it just, when I watch these negotiations, it's like a gut punch. It really is. And I just wish you could find it to support the teachers and totem staff and keep us in there fighting for our kids. And, you know, I keep hearing over and over, good teaching, adults and caring adults in the classrooms that know these kids, know their curriculum, engage their students. That's the best way to student achievement and a happy and content staff. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Let's see, we have Jessica Rodriguez.
And she's in person.
Jessica is in person. Welcome, Jessica. Okay. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
At the board meeting on September 21st, I was shocked and angered by some of the things that were stated. The first being that teachers weren't asked to start instruction on day 1. That is not accurate, as the pacing guide required instruction on day 1. This did not allow students to properly settle into their classroom or grant teachers the ability to establish relationships and get a feel for where their students were academically. When discussing the reading curriculum and the expectation of 80% proficiency by 2024, it was stated this was, quote, ambitious, end quote. It is completely unrealistic. Dr. Bishop followed up by using one school's data in an affluent area as justification as to why every ASD school could achieve this. One school out of dozens with students grade levels behind. Dr. Bishop also stated—
Jessica, you need to not blame or call out anybody by name.
I'm simply stating—
You may state this, you can state the, yeah, but that's not what, I'll give you your time back, but you should not be calling people out by name.
I'm directly making statements that she stated.
It was stated. You said it was stated. You didn't need to say who stated it.
How?
Excuse me.
Then how?
You may proceed.
It was also stated that phonemic awareness has never been a detriment to anyone. This is a dangerous viewpoint for someone in leadership, and the very reason ASD does not have a strong phonemic program. It's malpractice that so many students can't read by 3rd grade and beyond. In my grade level, at my Title I, there are 46 2nd grade students. 3 are at grade level. 3. That's a 6.5% success rate. More than half are at a kindergarten grade level. What should I tell parents at conferences? Our hands are tied by a system so entwined in politics and wanting to be right that you have woefully lost sight of the very reason we are all here, our students. Many statements were made. Quote, we continue to use data to drive our instruction. We build our actions around what our students need. Data determines needs, what our students are demonstrating now. Every student advances each year. High quality instruction matters, end quote. There seems to be a disconnect between public rhetoric and reality for those of us who are on the ground. The district touts its allegiance to data-based decision-making, but its own metrics demonstrate how badly we are failing our students. Instead, we continue a one-size-fits-all approach that simply doesn't work in many classrooms. If these statements held any truth, teachers would be afforded the professional choice to use replacement curriculum so students could advance. Instead, we are forced to continue to teach students material grade levels behind their current academic skills. What are ASD's plans to help our students who are several grade levels behind? Why hasn't this issue been at the forefront of your meetings? Where are the district's accountability for perpetually failing our students? This is not a teacher issue, and you will not blame us. Teachers have been telling you what we need, but we are not listened to. And if we are, it is something you think our students need, not what their teacher knows they need. Parents understand that it is not the teachers, it is the perpetual systematic failures of ASD that are failing your children. If you built your, quote, actions around what your students need, end quote, then you would get rid of your politics.
Thank you, Jessica. Next we have, let's go to Rihanna Gay, telephonic. Oh, she's here. Hi. Welcome. You have 3 minutes, Rihanna.
Thank you. Hello, board. My name is Rihanna. Tonight, I'm here to share a few items. To best meet our school's families' needs, I had a few conferences on Monday and Tuesday. Most of all, the parents showed up. They showed up happy, ready to listen to what I had to share and willing to help with what is needed to best meet their child's needs. Just think if your negotiating team did that. All AEA and TOTA members of negotiating teams are showing up and telling you what your educators need. Yet it is continued to be ignored and not listened to with what is best for educators. All of your educators are saying the same thing. Keep our planning time, competitive compensation package, make plain SPED protocols, and make healthcare a priority. Walk in our shoes and give us what we need. Brain science tells us we don't learn when we're stressed. We know Anchorage ACEs scores are high. Please offer more on benefits, time at duty station, and get the contract resolved. Aren't you ready to reach our goals? Taking away or redirecting my planning time is a direct neglect for students. Educators are the roots of ASD. Ding dong, school's in session. I ask that you pay attention to this lesson. ASD, you are not listening. Where are your parents? Bring your grandma here because someone else needs to hear all the hot air that the negotiators are spewing this year. What's the matter, you ask? You're treating educators like we have small tasks. We have your goals and guardrails you want us to appear. This tug of war is muddy, unclear. Mandatory trainings have deadlines, grades, report cards have deadlines, but getting a contract settled before it expires doesn't have a deadline. That has already made ADN headline. October is Fire Safety Month, and ASD is time to stop, drop, and roll. Give educators a little trust and a little control. It is going to take a huge paradigm shift, Yes, more than just a tasty cookie as a gift. Give us more and you will get more. You cannot accomplish less with more, nor more with less. Please just confess this is a lot of stress, and in the end, students will not have success. When adults bicker and tug of war, oh, what a mess. You have to water the roots if you want your educators to produce productive fruits. Thank you.
Thank you, Rihanna. Next, telephonically, we have Danielle Kemp. Oh, he's in person. Okay. Welcome, Mr. Kemp. You have 3 minutes.
Where's that?
It's up right in front.
Okay, oh, there it is. All right. Thank you to the board for allowing me to testify tonight. My name is Danielle Kemp. I'm the co-chair of the AEA's Human Civil Rights Committee and the co-founder of the Alaska Coalition of BIPOC Educators. I am here to state that the ASD, I do not believe, is doing their level best for our educators during current contract negotiations with the AEA and Totem. A 0.00 increase in salary for 3 years. Poor health care package. Okay. Taking away teachers' planning time. Ooh. You can't make this kind of offer and realistically expect to keep educators, right? The contract negotiators are also missing an excellent opportunity to address and fix the glaring racial disparity in our educator corps too. We must do better to not just attract and retain educators, but moreover, and most especially, educators of color. All our students need to see in our educators the diversity represented in the ASD community itself. You know, that thing that all of us love to brag about, but rarely empower. Right now, non-white teachers represent only 15% of all teachers certified. Black teachers sit at just 1%. Indigenous teachers, too, are only 1% of all certified teachers. 1%. How can this rightfully be in the land of the Dena'ina? The demographic numbers are very similar to our administration as well. A truly representative educator and administrative corps also helps to broaden not just our students of color's understanding of the diverse world around them, but our white kids' understanding as well. So we can't put these problems on the back burner any longer. Racism in the ASD is real as well and is a problem that should be on the top of your list. Incidences of blatant interpersonal racism have been on the rise. The ASD should do more to address and eliminate systemic, institutional, and individual racism if the district is ever to improve and meet the needs of its staff, student, and community. One of the ways the ASD can do this is to create a racism database to collect information on incidences of racism within the district and make it public. As many educators here will acknowledge, you cannot fix a problem unless you have the data to properly measure it. We must make racism a problem that we can solve with a data-driven decision-making process. Please create this racism database yesterday. If you need advice on building it, just contact us at the Alaska Coalition of BIPOC Educators and we will help you on your way. This is an expectation of ours and a call to action to the ASD. Thank you for your time and have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. Next, in person, we have Martin Hansen. Welcome, Mr. Hansen.
Thank you for having me.
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, 1 minute per page. First of all, both of our sons.
Can you use the mic, sir? Yeah.
Both of our sons received outstanding educations in the Anchorage School District, and we're grateful. And we support schools. And I think they're one of the most important things that we have in our community. We have lived next door to Inlet View School for 35 years, and I want to talk about Inlet View School. I don't want to come across as the cranky neighbor, so you need to know I care about kids. I've coached Anchorage Junior Nordic for 25 years. I'll do it again this winter. I've coached boys and girls club soccer for 3 years. on the in-the-view school playgrounds or playing field. I care about my neighborhood. I was active in the South Addition Community Council as president and vice president for, I don't know, a combination of 4 or 5 years. We, the neighbors, first heard about the proposal to rebuild Inlet View School in the south of the school property in September. And when we were exposed to the plan, we were also told that it was a final plan, and the meetings that were provided, the 2 Zoom meetings, were informative. They were not there to take input. They weren't being held so that we could make suggestions for improvements. So I'm here hoping to persuade you to not put a $30 million bond to rebuild the school on the 2022 ballot. I'm hoping that we can all step back, take a look at what is best for the school, for the students, for the neighborhood, and for all of Anchorage, because all Anchorage taxpayers are going to pay for the school bonds. The school district has educational specifications for an elementary school. If we were to follow those specifications, we would have an excellent school. Best for the kids, the neighborhoods, the neighbors, and Anchorage. The current, I mean the existing layout of the buildings to the north, playgrounds, and playing fields to the south is excellent. It's been excellent since 1957. The school is on the north end of the schoolyard. It blocks the cold north wind, protecting some of the kids when they're playing. I know, when they're playing closer to the school, but it does protect them. And the playing field, which is just a jewel for the neighborhood and for the children, is at the south, where it melts out first and fastest. The picture that I gave to Mr. Higgins was taken a couple of days ago, and it shows how the snow that we got last Thursday is only lingering where it's shaded by a 6-foot high fence, my 13-foot high house, the neighbors,
Mr. Hanson, yeah, your time is up. But thank you. And we will get you, we have a handout. We'll get it to everybody. Thank you. Next, we have Lisa Sparrow in person. Welcome, Lisa. You have 3 minutes.
I'm here to talk about the lack of school staffing now and in the future. This lack of staffing is and will continue to reduce our students' academic success. The inability to staff schools is caused by 2 things. First, a substitute shortage, and second, and more frighteningly, a teacher shortage. I teach first grade, where a big focus is teaching foundational reading skills. Students spend 40 minutes a day in small groups reinforcing these skills. Last year, we were unable to do these groups once to twice a week due to a lack of staff. This year, I worry the same thing will happen. It only takes 1 or 2 staff in the school to be absent to cause small groups to be canceled. When children miss the small group time, their skills suffer. The MTSS model can't work without staff. How can we fix this? A good place to start is by staffing our schools with knowledgeable, experienced teachers and support staff. Unfortunately, the current and potentially long-term teacher shortage, combined with ASD's unfavorable working conditions, potentially poor health benefits, low salary, and retirement plan will make this difficult. Here are 3 problems that will make ASD a less than desirable district to work for. Problem 1, teacher working conditions. During bargaining, ASD has proposed taking away planning time, prep time, and grading days, and requiring teachers to be available for duties whenever they do not have students. Problem 2, healthcare. To reduce healthcare costs, the district wants to move us from our current healthcare plan to their lower quality care VERA program. Again, to save money, Tier 3-4 teachers cannot cash out unused sick days at retirement. Problem 3, inadequate salary in retirement. In bargaining, the district is proposing a 0 salary increase over 3 years. With this proposal, teachers will be earning less in the future than we are now. As for retirement, Alaska teachers hired after 2006 have the worst teacher retirement system in the United States. We're the only state without Social Security benefits or pension. Furthermore, at retirement, Social Security benefits earned prior to teaching are reduced along with Social Security spousal benefits. These three problems make ASD a poor choice for new hires who will likely have many districts hoping to hire them. For young teachers, building a career in a district with the country's worst retirement plan is a hard sell. And for older second career teachers, the loss of previously earned Social Security benefits is problematic. Where does that leave ASD teachers? Angry? Yes. The lack of respect during bargaining has been particularly demoralizing to hear after all the efforts teachers made to teach COVID. But anger is exhausting. Most of that feel sad and disappointed that this is the current state of our district. But despite that disappointment, my belief in the urgent need to teach my first graders how to read motivates me. Reading is an access skill. Children must learn to read, but I cannot do it alone. Anchorage teachers need a compensation package that retains teachers and attracts new teachers. Without that, improved test scores will not be possible.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, we have Mary Richards. Oh, she's here. Okay. Welcome, Mary. You have not 30 minutes, 3 minutes.
Oh, come on. I could take 30. Easy. So my name is Mary Richards, and I'm a member of the Alaska Black Caucus Education Committee, as well as a high school English teacher and a proud member of the Anchorage Education Association. First, I really do want to share a sincere thank you to Dr. Bishop and the board for keeping our children, teachers, and staff safe during COVID and continuing with our mask mandate and Safe Schools initiative. We really appreciate your efforts, and no, it has not been an easy time in our community, and I really, really, really mean that. Thank you so much. I've been reflecting a lot lately on how adults in our relation with one another in our community and how this affects our children. When community members and children see our teachers being treated so unfairly during bargaining, this gives them the direct message that it's okay to be disrespectful and insulting when it is not. And you know right now that we're in a fishbowl in this community, not only locally, statewide, but nationally. How we talk to each other as adults, how we work with each other as adults, it matters now more than ever. I do want to give a shout out to the district's high school Tier 2 Edge literacy curriculum. I'd like to invite all the school board members to come in and see that. I think it's really amazing. At Chugiak High School, where I'm teaching, we're running a co-teaching model, and I've been really impressed by the district's move toward a full inclusion model. This is a prime example of how teachers are willing to go above and beyond for the success of our students. There are tons of examples like this in our district where teachers are working in collaboration with administration to do what's right for children. Let's keep that ball rolling. But of course, now we got to talk about the current contract and the good faith effort in which there's none. I used all day on Friday because my principal knew that we needed the day to actually work on our curriculum. I spent the whole day grading writing and assessing writing. I'm now teaching right now 9th grade, full inclusion, Tier 2, all the way through AP Language and Composition. I'm teaching writing in all those classes. We're really teaching critical thinking and reading. But even with that full day, I spent most of my weekend also wrapping up my grades and posting on Monday. I think there's a lack of fundamental understanding in terms of what it takes for teachers to really address and assess the literacy needs of our students. Superintendent Bishop and the school board are consistently referencing literacy data and rightly want to see growth, especially among our more vulnerable children. And yet, when we put models into place to address these literacy gaps, we hear that we want to take away planning time, we want to take away grading days. It's really pretty just insane. So I hope that we can get.
Thank you, Mary. Next, we have Jonelle Jones. Hit *6 to unmute Jonelle. Oops. Try it again. *6. There.
Thank you, school board members. I'm Janelle Jones, East Anchorage resident. I would like to propose the math curriculum, which is an approach to discuss and discover the purpose of mandatory masks as a way to better understand the world we live in. The purpose of the mass curriculum is to help you prepare your child to identify the barrage of media lies that are being downloaded into your child's mind by the CDC, WHO, and compulsory schools. Your child will soon understand and find empowerment through this experience of tyranny because they will locate places where they can help. Where we are now will not last forever, but if we want a brighter future, we had better build it ourselves. These children need to see a full human face. The solution is so simple as we all know, just stop cooperating. When we stop cooperating as a conscious community, whether local or global, the mandatory mask will disappear because the need to see a full human face is fundamental. Has your child asked these 4 questions, and what did you tell them? Number 1, why do we have to wear these masks? Examples could be A, the government has forced us to do it. I don't like it, but it is a temporary thing. Or B, we don't have to wear a mask. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You own your body, and I trust you want the best for it. Number 2, when can we take the mask off? Examples A, now you don't have to wear that mask. Who owns your body? You do. B, when would you like to take it off? Now? Okay, do it. Anytime another person wants to push their agenda on you for your own safety is a great opportunity to think for yourself. What can we say to our children about the business of vaccines and fear campaigns? We can tell them the truth or our best representations of it. Number 3, who is making us wear masks? Example, A, some people use coercion and they don't understand that you and I have natural rights to our life, freedom, and property. B, government officials acting like they have superhuman power over us sometimes use force and intimidation. That's not what kind people do, but the government is based on these tactics, so they constantly violate our freedoms. C, criminals use government as a tool of power to control other people and make them do things against their will. It's a bad system, so that's why we are learning about self-reliance. Because one day we will not be cooperating with any coercive organizations. You might even consider informing your child of truths that could affect their future. Our children need that information to prepare for a future that is on the horizon. It may be helpful to share some concepts with them. Unfortunately, ultimately, I do believe freedom and voluntary relationships will be widespread and abundant again. So this is a crucial time in history approaching as we head into November.
Thank you, Janelle. Excuse me. Next, we have Sylvia Lowry. Sylvia Lowry. Welcome, Sylvia. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I don't mean to toot our own horns, but no matter what occupation you have in life, you got there with teachers. Besides parents, teachers play the second most vital role in a child's life as they grow and develop. That is a lot of responsibility to have, and we would like for the board to recognize our value and compensate us accordingly. Teaching is not a profession that you can do right out of high school. We have to go to college just like many other professions, yet we get paid a lot less than others who have the same amount of education that we do. And I'm pretty sure we're the only ones. I'm pretty sure we're the only ones that have jobs that can have our salaries frozen, regardless of how many years we've worked or hours of education we've had. We endure numerous hardships and still show up each day, not because of the paycheck, but because we have a passion for our profession. Teaching is a calling of the heart, but over time, we are losing many excellent teachers due to a lack of support, both emotionally and financially. We are spending more time than ever making sure we are doing our jobs. Teachers have always been notorious for working well over the 40 hours required, but now it is beyond ridiculous. I am a school teacher by day, and after school, I'm an assistant coach because I need the extra money. Being an assistant coach is hard on my body, but I have no choice. I gave up my lunch to take on lunch detention duty for the extra addendum. I work Instacart in the evenings and on weekends just to make ends meet. And then I come home to do lesson planning or research to find a new way to help get a student, get them that concept, or prepare materials, and the list goes on. And then I fall in bed exhausted and ready to do it all over again. You want to take away my planning time? When am I supposed to plan? Why do I do this? I teach because I love what I do. I love seeing my students as they grasp new concepts. I love hearing my students say, Miss Lowry, you're the best teacher I've ever had. I love interacting with my coworkers to find solutions to better the lives of the students that we touch. But also because I am a single grandmother who has raised 2 grandchildren from birth by herself with no financial assistance from anyone. I want them to be able to have a better life. And like any parent, I will do whatever it takes to do this for them. I just wish it wasn't quite so hard. By the time I get my paycheck, 1/3 of it is gone to TRS, taxes, and medical, which is outrageous. All of this comes with a price. Our time with family is suffering for many of us. Our children is.
Thank you, Sylvia. Next, we have Amy Tamagni. Welcome, Amy.
Tamani, thank you.
Tamani,
yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you. Administrative assistant for a department here in the ASD Ed Center, totem member, totem board member. I've been an employee as a totem person for 21, excuse me. First in the building many a day. This is the life of an ASD AA. Switch on the lights and clock in, start the computer and lock some doors. Big good morning to the boss and the coworkers too. Now chug some coffee. Already there is just so much to do. Fire up Outlook to an inbox that's full. Oh dear, 10 staff are out. Today survival is the goal. Next, check ASOP to see if the subs were deployed. 8 out of 10 spots are filled. Success. I'm overjoyed. The phones begin to jingle with a variety of needs, from parents to principals and everyone in between. All calls are important and deserve our utmost care. Someday I could be on the other end of the call, needing help from the AA, feeling helpless or worse. That gentle reminder makes even the grouchiest of callers seem way less terse. After hours emails are now answered and calls from voicemails have been made. Time cards are due no later than 10. Oh darn, Jane forgot to clock out again. Correction forms pour in until 9:59. It's a race. Will I get payroll finished on time? Don't forget addenda. They will be pulled for payment the next day. Now I've taken care of everyone in Totem, ACE, and AEA. Parents, teachers, administration, vendors, all have important needs. My list is getting long. Pause for a moment and take a breath. Now log on to Zoom. I sincerely miss the days we could all just meet in a room. Time to order books and noise-canceling headphones again. P cards are an AA's new best friend. A requisition is needed to cover training costs. Now log into IFAS, enter the data from vendor and every detail in between. Send it through the workflow, and the procurement folks will do the rest. Filing, scanning, copying, all sit in piles to wait. For now, it's almost 2 o'clock, and I haven't left my desk since 8:48. A nibble, a nosh, and a bathroom break. Oh gosh, where did 30 minutes go? There's so little time to breathe. Back at my desk, I dive into the mess, proofing and editing items from the boss's to-do list. Balancing the budgets is always such a chore. I bet your bottom dollar we AAs can stretch the money and are able to find some more. ASD has 8 titles of administrative assistants in them and about 200 AA positions in total. That's about 1,600 man hours a day, 360,000 hours for a 10-month period. That's just an average and doesn't include the 11, 12-month AAs. We do need some more time. We do need some more pay. We need a pay increase, and we do appreciate what you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, Delaney Snyder. Welcome, Delaney. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm a fifth grade teacher at a Title I school. Every person in this district is being consumed by the amount of work and lack of support this school year. I feel and hear every day how we cross 3 things off our to-do list and it grows 3 times larger. I know some of my to-do list comes from doing more like 21st century after school program and student council. But if I don't do it for the students, who will? I do it because I'm here for the students. And I know I have more energy than most people in this profession. Most of my colleagues are burnt out by the regular school day. I devote my entire week to my students, but I am burnt out daily. And by the end of the week, I am so exhausted. All I can do is sleep and plan all weekend long, just so I can be ready and healthy for another full week, all while not knowing if I will get my planning time or a small $20 for my missed time. That's what my professional planning time is worth to this district, $20. My missed planning time happens often at my school because of the lack of coverage. Missed planning time also means being stuck in a room all day with students, minus our lunch, which is usually spent working. Being in a room with students all day is not great for anyone's mental health. We are told to take care of ourselves with what time and to maintain our physical and mental health, but now we're having to negotiate on that too. I can't tell you the details of the bargaining going on with healthcare, but what I can tell you is I notice it in my paycheck and my budget every month. Now I'm looking at a very high deductible starting over in a few short months, and I'm trying to figure out how I can budget my money and the time I need to continue seeing my therapist to maintain the proper mental health needed in this profession, especially being at a Title I school. This is only the start of the many things wrong right now. All I am asking for is the same things we teach our students. Empathy, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Please come sub for a day at my school because we definitely need the help. Experience what life in a classroom of students all day is like. Feel the pain of a missed prep and having to call someone to your classroom just so you can get out to clear your head and use the bathroom. What saddens me most is that McDonald's has shown teachers more appreciation than our own superintendent. McDonald's offered all teachers a free breakfast meal all week long last week. Meanwhile, our superintendent dropped off 12 donuts for a staff of 52 last Friday. Thank you, McDonald's, for valuing teachers more than my school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Charles Thompson. Welcome, Charles. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, I'm here to ask to end the SRO program. I explained in my last testimony how it isn't a priority of the mayor, given the program is dependent on you funding it 75% of the way. I have a question for you to consider. Why did the mayor make a big announcement on changing the funding of the SRO program when it represented a net zero change to the taxpayers? The SRO program isn't federally granted, so it doesn't matter whether it comes from ASD or APD. He's cutting a lot of budgets, something like $7 million total, but moving 3/4 of the cost of SROs to the school district instead of how it's paid for already through the APD budget doesn't directly change the cost to the taxpayer. I'll tell you why he wants ASD to pay. It's because he either wants to take COVID relief money intended for the school district and apply it to APD, or he wants to reduce APD overtime. That's it. He wants you to cancel the program so he can move 15 SROs onto other assignments and reduce the need for as much officer overtime. Politically, he can't defund the police, but he can provide ASD with a weird kind of bargain. And in effect, by putting 15 officers back into other assignments, he can cut the amount of overtime by spreading the work of APD to more officers. And they can do their job with more rest and be better at their job. I actually don't have a problem with that. That's the decision he's offloaded onto you with his budget proposal. There's a culture of wanting to do the most as a first responder, EMT, cop, or firefighter. It's a way of multiplying the value of your work, but also comes from a place where you're serving your community. But as administrators, you need to allocate resources appropriately. And when you consider that police work has to be done and that their overtime is available to officers because 15 other officers are being held up as acting as school counselors, as it's listed, that's a lot of money the muni could save. But what about the teachers? The money's going towards SROs, The money going towards SROs won't go towards reducing class size or paying teachers a better wage. If the funding is approved by the school board for SROs, I will be doing my best that I can to make sure the teachers remember the fact when they vote on their new union contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Next, we have Sarah Osborne. Sarah, it's *6 to unmute. Sarah, *6. Okay, we'll try to circle back. Let's try Regina Pierce. In person, Regina Pierce. Okay. Oh. Take your time. Welcome. You have 3 minutes. Take your time. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, members of the school board, Dr. Bishop, Totem, and fellow AEA members. My name is Regina Pierce. I am the AEA Nurse Ad Hoc Committee Chair and the West High School Nurse. Sorry. I've been with ASD for 11 years. I come to you today to give a glimpse of what school nursing is like. I start my day with multiple voicemail messages, students often lined at the door for medication, and diabetics awaiting care. I have 2 gastrostomy tube feedings, multiple other insulin and medication administrations throughout the day. These are just the scheduled visits. Unscheduled visits can include injuries, illness, mental health, emergencies, such as anaphylaxis, seizures, hyper or hypoglycemia, cardiac respiratory conditions, and a myriad of other concerns. In addition to visits, nurses are required to perform screenings for all new to district students, special education for their IEPs, and state of Alaska screenings that vary by grade level. For West High School alone, this is over 700 screenings this school year. In addition to treatments, scheduled and unscheduled visits, now there is COVID. Currently, nurses are struggling to have lunch breaks. Planning time is non-existent, and we are exhausted. The email sent out on Friday, October 15th, that the district plans to have district-wide COVID testing in schools by November 11th was a shock, even to nurses. The district has formed a contract with Beechtree Molecular Labs to run lab results. However, your school nurses are the labor force performing testing, all communications with parents, receiving results, getting those results to parents, and with no compensation. Personally, I am lucky. I have just began getting assistance from a certified nursing assistant 4 days ago. However, only 9 schools get any assistance. If school nurses are rock stars, that you say we are, show it to us in a form that counts. Not a cookie, not a brief email recognition, but with a contract that is not disrespectful to nurses, teachers, counselors, OTs, PTs, SLPs, school psychs, librarians, and all other AEA staff. We are this district, and we are the shape of Anchorage. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. Let's see, Sarah Osborne, can you unmute?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Great. Hi, my name is Sarah Osborne, and I'm an ASD educator and AEA member, and I'm testifying tonight from Denina Land. I wanted to echo the concerns expressed by other members here in support of fair AEA and totem contracts. I'm really just concerned about the future of public education in Anchorage. Currently, we have over 100 teaching vacancies in the district, and I've heard from many colleagues who plan to retire or leave the profession this year due to low morale and unreasonable workloads. The contract being offered by the district is frankly going to push more and more teachers out of the district, and it also is just bad for students. Students need teachers who have time to plan meaningful instruction, time to analyze all of the data and test scores that the district loves to collect, and time to provide thorough and meaningful feedback, in addition to making family calls and providing individual attention to students. And yet the district wants to take away all of the parts of the teaching job that makes those tasks possible. So I urge the district to think about the long-term impacts of offering a fair contract now. If we want robust schools or even just functioning schools, if we want improved outcomes in math and reading, if we want healthy, happy children and critical thinkers, we need to think not just about this year or next year, but how are we going to achieve that in 5 years or 10 years? And the way we're going to do that is by investing in educators and education now. On a different note, I just briefly want to respond to something that was stated in a recent letter to parents and families from the superintendent office. In that message, the office cited the increase in behavior concerns and stated that there have been 2 incidents this year involving hate speech or racial slurs. And when I read that, I really just could not understand if the letter was intentionally false or if folks in the superintendent office really just don't know what actually goes on in schools. Unfortunately, hate speech and slurs are a much bigger problem. And this got me thinking that a lot of incidents in which hate speech is used often involve other disciplines, such as fighting. And I think these incidents often get coded as fighting. And therefore, the data on hate speech is not collected. And I just want to kind of echo Danielle Kemp's testimony from earlier and urge the district to revise the discipline reporting system so that it includes a mandatory checkbox to disclose any hate speech. We need to collect that data so that we can correct the problem and make sure that we're providing accurate communications to families about what schools sound like and what.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. That is the end of our first hour of testimony. We will resume at item
Madam President,
8.
I'd like to move that we alter our agenda to finish the few people that are left on the.
We have people sign up as well.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'll withdraw.
Yes, thank you. So that brings us to item E on our agenda, our consent agenda.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda as listed on the main agenda.
I'll second. Thank you. It's been moved in second that we approve the items on the consent agenda. ASD Memorandum number 038 and September 21st regular session minutes. Is there any opposition to approving the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. We have one action item. Member Holloman.
Madam President, I move to approve ASD Memorandum number 042 and authorize the superintendent to award a contract to install a new intercom system at West High School, Romig Middle School to audio enhancement under emergency procurement guidelines in the amount of $1,220,066. The administration further recommends that the school board approve and authorize the superintendent to transfer the amount of $1,220,066 of general fund balance into the capital projects fund.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second that we award the contract to West Romig Intercom Emergency Procurement. Is there any opposition we can do everybody's here, we can do a vote. Get ready to vote, please. I thought somebody was online.
Madam Chair?
Yes, you can.
So this is not related. This is before the vote. So we're doing questions right now.
This
okay.
is yes.
All right. I just see it popped up on my screen. In the spirit of promoting feedback, has ASD asked our staff whether the microphones and safe buttons that are proposed in this contract would be welcome, used, and useful within the intercom system? I mean, it seems very fancy, but Dr. Bishop.
Yes, I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Roth.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop, through the president to member Lessons. So I think what I would just offer to the board, what we have here is a failing intercom system, which is inclusive of the intercom, the public announcement system. It is the public communication system for both those schools that are inconsistent, unreliable, and frankly, they are failing. So the request is that we replace what is called the TC6 intercom system, which is with the audio enhancement, which has the same functionality as the TC6, but also as a core component of the system has audio capability that is installed in classrooms. If that answers your question.
It did not answer the question.
So
the question was, did West High provide any input into it?
Through the chair. Yes, in fact, we've had probably multiple prolonged communications on this broader subject, and I've personally conversed with both the school principals on this matter. If that is responding to your question, I guess I'm not totally understanding if we're asking the school staff if they want a functioning intercom system and public announcement system. I don't know that those questions were presented.
Our schools need those for safety. Is that what you're?
Oh, I understand the intercom systems. I've observed them, and you can't avoid hearing them. It was more of a question. I mean, I've never shopped for an intercom system before, and I don't know whether, all of the bells and whistles are something that would be useful, or whether there's a different option that would also fit the bill. I guess I was hoping to invoke the spirit of grassroots information gathering.
I guess I'm not completely understanding. There's no bells and whistles to it. It's not intended to be a Cadillac system against something else. It is to replace what is an integral component of a school building or school buildings with a system that we expect will function the way it's intended to function.
I appreciate that. I'm just also reading ahead, and if we're going to be, changing out the intercom systems, as I'm sure time will require at 18 other schools, all of a sudden that balloons to like a $20 million proposition. And so what we buy seems
so
like
through the president, and I appreciate that question, that clarification. So we are coming to the board, and we take this very serious. We recognize we're asking the board to make an emergency procurement for the intercom systems for both West and Romig, because they're connected, and they are both failing. They're not interoperable. These systems are failing, and again, these are the TC6 systems. So we know we have, in addition to these two schools, we got 17 other schools that have this TC6 system. And our challenge is the vendor, the company that produced this TC6 has basically, they've cut it off. They don't support it. There's no parts. So we recognize that we have a potential longer term issue to deal with the TC6. We are aware that intercom systems are eligible under ESSER 3 funding, that we could potentially compete a contract to replace these additional systems that, again, they're all vulnerable and that they're all unreliable. That if we were to do that, we would come to the board with a recommendation to award a contract to replace these longer term and then seek federal reimbursement if that gets after that. That we recognize there's a cost. We see that there is an opportunity to correct what is a pretty significant outstanding matter with our intercom system are those schools that have this TC6.
Thank you. I think that it's interesting to hear that it would be eligible for ESSER 3 funding. We haven't yet heard of the presentation. I think that's coming at the next board meeting for the allocation of ESSER 3 funding. I'm wondering if a big infrastructure project like this, thinking again at the larger scale of all of the intercom systems, would be more, I don't know, applicable for like a bond issue rather than something right now out of an emergency fund.
Right, and we did not place that on the bond. Again, those are functioning, but we do see a life ending. And so we'll present to the board at the time different options for which to purchase or not. The particular one in front of us is due to safety reasons. And that's why we're asking to go outside of that regular procurement. But all those would come to the board.
And that was my clarification. The system that's currently in place is failing or failed. So it is a safety issue.
Yes, Madam President, that is correct. It is extremely unreliable. It requires multiple maintenance call outs to try to keep it on life support. And when it goes down, again, there are no parts. There are absolutely zero replacement parts. So if you have a mechanical failure, it's down for days until our maintenance staff are able to patch together a repair to get it functioning again.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Is there anyone here? I don't see anybody signed up to testify. Anyone wanting to testify on this matter? This matter. You need to have your mask on, sir.
Dustin Darden. I recently purchased a EMF radiation detector in relation to this specific $1 million you intend on purchasing this intercom system. And it has to do with electricity because this intercom system is of unknown origins. And Madam President, as I was listening to the gentleman previous to myself speaking, I was alarmed at his speech in the urgency of this intercom system at this time using emergency funds for $1 million. And through Madam President, Ms. Lessons brought up an excellent point as well, that if this passes for $1 million, it would set the precedent for a multi-million-dollar upgrade. And the question I pose to the board, for what absolute reason would this be necessary? Is there something more to this system besides an intercom system for communicating to the school children? And I was interested too. I heard no questions about what exactly was wrong with the existing system, and how could a system that's been implemented for years all of a sudden be an emergency? It poses a severe, questionable opportunity of conversation, which I did see a lack thereof through the board. The only question was through Ms. Lessons, Madam President. And with that being said, the veracity of the gentleman who spoke before Mrs. Lessons' approach towards children and the militarized tactics, I would caution all residents listening to this communication on what implications this intercom system could be. For example, I spoke earlier about the EMF detector that I purchased. I hold it up to a light bulb of fluorescent nature. That's 1,200 voltmeters per bulb. So if you have two bulbs, that's 2,400 voltmeters per fluorescent light bulb in the classrooms. What kind of radiation are potentially going to be propelled through this intercom system? And there's just a multitude of questions I think need to be asked before you proceed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. State your name, please. And we are testifying on memo number 042.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, superintendent, teachers that are on staff today. Thank you for coming, supporting the students. Niall Sherwood Williams, speaking to the emergency authorization for procurement of a $1.2 million communication system. That's a lot of cellular telephones that could be purchased. A lot of iPads that could be purchased for the students. Mr. Dustin Darden brought up an interesting point. How does this possibly end up in a situation where we have an emergency? What failed? Madam President, did rats get into the walls and eat the lines? Madam President, was there a water failure on the roof where water got in and damaged the lines? Is there an electronics issue with the backup of the system? What exactly failed? It really begs the question. If we don't have parts, Madam President, through Madam President Tom Roth, if we don't have the parts, that's a problem that could be addressed. Maybe the students could start building some in the shop class. Maybe we could start teaching technology and math and science like we actually talk about in these board meetings. That's the way to get results. Give the children a task, ask them to complete it. You'd be surprised with the results that they may come up with. But $1.2 million for something that you could, I ordered a megaphone, cost me $60 from Amazon. It can be heard from 3 football fields away. $60. Get a couple of those, shout down the hallway. That'd be a solution. But through Madam President, Member Lessons, only person to ask the question, only person offering forth a different solution. Discussion, transparency, who's behind this company that we're going to give this procurement check to? Because all this will be a matter of public record where we'll be able to investigate exactly who owns the company, search through Alaska Department of Commerce who owns the company. Thank you for the bell ring. Again, don't appreciate that. And as well, emails and communications that may have been in the back channels to effectuate this procurement. It'll be found out whether it's really an emergency or whether this was a conspiracy. So I urge the members of this board to no vote and to look into this further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, well, I'll keep it short. My name is Angela Butcher. I find it, interesting. I actually think it's probably a good thing. I've noticed.
Can you turn on your mic?
So one thing that I did notice this year is that the students were sent out with the notices for the teachers to be able to take them outside of the school for safety reasons and be able to go on trails.
I'm sorry, could you state your name? And
Sorry.
we are only taking testimony on memo number 042.
Yes, I understand, ma'am. Okay, my name is Angela Butcher. Yes, so this year the students have been doing like safety drills, kind of like we do safety drills for earthquakes and fire and stuff. And I'm not really sure what it's for, but I do know we're in a weird time. I believe though that like as far as telecommunications, you know, and he's a little confused. It seems like some people might be on what causes something to fail. But wires, they don't make the same wires like back when they started this intercom system as we do now. We cannot transfer the same information. The sound won't transfer. The metals just wear down over time. So with 100% certainty, any intercom system will not sustain itself for, you know, any kind of electronics, and they are expensive. I think some people, one of the questions it seems like is I think she was asking was with what the equipment that will be inside the classrooms and how this will be if you have video or if you have audio. How much of this where the teachers are going to be comfortable in their classrooms, that they have the privacy and the children have the privacy. Also, some things are told that are very private in the moments in the class that, you know, maybe should not be shared, you know, or that could be a consideration. Like, I think that's the concerns that people have with it. But as for me, I think definitely even having cameras sometimes in the classroom, if you have a shooter issue, it might be nice to be able to see what's going on in the classroom if you can't make it in there, or there is an earthquake. And, you know, anyway, so that's some of my supporting things with that. That's all I had.
Thank you, Ms. Butcher. Okay, see no other. Mr. Donnelly, is your mic on to say something? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to learn a little more about the designated contractor for this. In the 2018 work that they did do at Kasum and Eagle River High School, did they win that contract over other bidders?
So through the president to Member Donnelly, I'm going to ask Mr. Whiting to talk to the contract, but it was a pilot of the audio enhancement system to see how those systems would function in a secondary school, which is Eagle River High School, and then in an elementary school, which is Kasum. So that pilot program. Mr. Whiting, are you able to talk to the contractual aspects of it? And then we have Miss Ashley Lawley, who is our Director for Security and Emergency Preparation. She can talk to the performance of those systems.
Through the board president to Member Donnelly. I would have to research. I am aware of the pilot projects, but I would have to research the methodology in which they're awarded. I don't have that handy with me here.
My other question is, my understanding, this is the entire West High and Romig campus. Is that correct? With all the classrooms?
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
Right.
Did Ashley, did you have was Ashley going to answer a question?
Did you have a question about something specific about the system?
No.
My question, okay, so this resolution proposes to hire a specific company in an emergency appropriation. We normally would go through a bidding process to establish them, and the justification is that in 2018 they performed some other work at Kasum and Eagle River that's been ruled successful. And I was wondering, did they go through an open bidding process to obtain the contracts that resulted in their work at Kasum Elementary and Eagle River? Because it would be a fair indication that they had already gone through an appropriate open bidding process at some point in time.
They haven't, through the board president to Member Donnelly, they haven't yet for us, only because we did Kasum and Eagle River as a pilot to try out a new intercom system, essentially. And then when looking at the emergency procurement for West and Romig, it really came down to cost. The two systems are comparable, but this one was significantly cheaper, which is why we went with audio enhancement over our current district standard.
So if I can just highlight the cost of this system. So as an example, the district has a designed plan to replace the intercom system at Bartlett at an estimated cost of $2.8 million using a system built by the same company that produced the TC6. Now that same functionality that the district could procure through audio enhancement instead of $2.8 million is being charged or quoted at $780,000. And that seems to be representative of the costing. So again, we believe that this is best value, that the reason that this has been a direct solicitation to a vendor is again from an emergency procurement standpoint, that this system, if we're the board to approve, that we believe we could have it installed by the end of this calendar year and then harvest the parts from the TC6 systems of the two schools and have those on hand to address what we reasonably will expect to have additional failures in this TC6 system. So that,
Mr. Roth,
yes, ma'am.
As we move down in time, if really, I'm curious with Member Lesson's question, we're going to need a significant amount. What is the process from this point on in regard to acquiring intercom systems?
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. So the process as we move forward is that the district would submit or would put out an RFP for a competitive bidding process to replace these unsupported TC6s.
And why is this different?
The reason this is different, there are a couple things. One, we recognize that we are asking the board to allocate fund balance. Typically, the superintendent has authority to take immediate action, but we believe that based on that aspect, but also since we don't have a system that is completely non-operational, that we believe that there is, time to bring this to the board to get board approval. We didn't think it appropriate to ask or expect expenditure of fund balance as an example. So that's why it's different in terms of timing. And again, we believe that based on what we've been informed by the representatives from Audio Enhancement, that this system could be installed by the end of this calendar year. If that answers your question, Dr. Bishop.
Member Higgins, did you have a comment?
I do. And I appreciate the comments about it being a very competitive bid, but I don't think that's relevant because what we're doing is saying it's an emergency, so we don't really have a choice. If we were going to not do it because we didn't have a competitive bid, then we're saying it doesn't qualify as an emergency bid. So that's my reservation, bypassing a competitive bid process unless it's absolutely required, necessary. Now, I'm not disagreeing over the importance of the communication systems. It's really a major security issue for a number of reasons if things, fell apart. And within it, I just don't know that any other providers might be able to provide a similar product today or what else would be out there. But I'm very leery about bypassing competitive bid process. I'm not going to be swayed because we think it's a good product or that we think it's a good price. That's not a criteria to me for emergency bid process. Emergency bid process is we have a crisis. It has to be addressed right now and we have to go forward and that's the only choice. And whether we got the best bid or not, we have to get somebody and get the job done right away. I appreciate that aspect of it. But I'm just letting you know that I'm just don't like bypassing competitive bid process with public funds unless there's really an urgent emergency issue and not swayed in regards to whether it's a great product or we've used it before, so let's go ahead and go with it. Neither one of those to me is consistent with the issue of whether we should be using a non-competitive bid process as an emergency. That's my only concern right now.
And I would, may I, through the president, to Member Higgins, I, agree that emergency processes shouldn't be used except for an emergency. What was shared is that we just have some information about it. So we're using a process and we're not taking a gamble on a product that won't give us a delivery. I would suggest that not having an intercom system in today's world into every classroom and every square foot of your building is an emergency, because I would not want for the employees, students, families that enter that building, if anything should happen. And in today's world, I wish it wasn't the way it was, but school violence is a part of what we deal with. And so for me, when I hear that we can no longer source things on eBay, which is what we've been doing the last few years for the parts, that has me concerned for this particular building. The other ones are further along where we're not having the significant call outs. And so I would charge that for the people who enter that building every day, that they would see this as a serious safety matter. And that's why, but anything into the future, absolutely bid it out, best bidder, best product, whatever, however that all works. I'm good with that. But I don't want to have something happen and we were asleep at the wheel.
Thank you. Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm hearing that the administration is looking to go through a full procurement process going forward, and I'm hearing that there's a potential safety liability by not taking this action. So I'm in favor, and I would call the question. Thank you.
Thank you. No further discussion? We will open voting. Please vote. Memorandum number 042, emergency procurement for West Romig Intercom. Has everybody voted? Oh, that's okay. You want to give a thumbs up or down? I still think. Oh, this computer is. No? Oh, you got it. Okay. That passes. Memorandum number 042 passes 7-0. Thank you, board. Now we're down to item G, non-action items. These will come before you again at our next meeting. Moving forward, we're back at our public comment. So we will pick up with it's Erica Jones, telephonically, or is she here? Erica? Yes. Erica, it's *6.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, so at the last school board meeting, I spoke about how the lack of teachers and subs is affecting our students. Today, I would like to talk about how our current contract negotiations are not helping the district solve this problem. The Anchorage School District used to be a fantastic place to work. Teachers wanted to work for ASD. They felt valued, respected, and heard. This, unfortunately, is no longer the case. The current contract negotiations show that the district does not value having the best teachers, nor does it honor that teachers are also using their own cell phones, cars, supplies, and money to fund their classrooms. When our current superintendent first became superintendent, the district gave rather large pay raises to several district office staff, stating that the district needed to increase their pay in order to hire and maintain the best people. And within the past 2 years, many other head office staff were also given raises. The board recently gave the superintendent a substantial raise on top of a car and cell phone allowance. Yet the district is offering 0% pay raises for teachers for the next 3 years. Having the district suggest a 0% raise for the next 3 years is a slap in the face to the time, effort, and money that we ourselves spend to better our classrooms, our teaching, our spaces. I have heard comments spoken under the breath of district staff that teachers are just money-grubbing teachers when they ask for back pay for the loss of planning time or the loss of duty-free lunches. But it's not about the money. It's about the backhanded way of saying that teachers and other teaching staff, such as our amazing paraprofessionals and front office staff, don't matter as much as those who are working in the district office. It would be one thing to offer a 0% raise over the next 2 years if those working in the main ASD building hadn't just received raises themselves. But many of them did receive raises, some of them quite substantial. On top of that, to hear that the district wants to reduce planning time, take away grading days, and forcibly change our health insurance is insulting. Teachers already spend many more hours planning and prepping materials for students than is given to us during our planning time. Even with the most scripted curriculums that are being forced upon them, teachers still need time to look over the lesson and prep the materials for the students to use. And don't get me started on grading. The time required to even minimally glance at and grade a student's assignment is 2 to 5 minutes per student. For a class of 30 students, that is at least an hour for one assignment. To actually look over a student's work and give meaningful feedback, especially a writing assignment, is much, much more. Teachers are required to submit 2 grades in each core subject area weekly. That is over 6 hours a week just in grading assignments. Yet you want to take away the time during our contracted workday to do such things. This is not the way to solve staffing issues. These negotiations are insulting and are causing many of our best teachers to retire and making those that are thinking of entering the field second guess their decisions. Too many teachers have left ASD in the past 2 years to either retire from teaching completely or to go over to private schools. My school, a Title I school, is still lacking a health teacher, an Indian ed tutor.
Thank you, Erica. Next, in person, Kathy Mobley. Welcome, Kathy. You have 3 minutes.
Asking questions about on that agenda. I feel like my tax money is being well spent. My name's Kathy Mobley, and I have the best job in the world. I'm not kidding. I love my job. I've got great supportive principals who take care of all the details and let me just teach. And I get to spend my days working with my colleagues to develop hardworking, educated, responsible kids that are going to be just that way when they get to be adults. And it's an exciting job, and I just absolutely love it. I also have this sunny disposition that makes it really hard for me to be demoralized. I mean, it takes a lot for me to be demoralized. So when I opened my paycheck and I looked at my paycheck and I compared it to last year, and I thought, this looks like, just looking at this, it looks like I'm making $1 an hour less than I made last year. What kind of an idiot works for something like that? What kind of an employer lets that happen for any reason? I mean, that's just scary. I mean, I love my job, and I've tightened my belts, and I've gotten a second belt. I have a large waistline. I've gotten a second job, but I've got bills to pay. I mean, I just now got my 3rd job. So I'm going to be teaching all day, going to another job till 10 o'clock at night, and then getting up and teaching the next day. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to do that, but I do have to. My principal once, one of my principals described me as my teaching style, go big or go home. Can you believe she said that? And I'm the kind of teacher who in May is thinking, what am I going to do next week for lesson plans? And the teachers say, Kathy, it's summer vacation. You can go home. I really like my job, and I think I'm good at it. And I hope that's the kind of people that you want in your schools. Smart people, driven people, people excited to come to school and teach your kids. Because honestly, it can be the best job in the world until maybe you get your paycheck. I don't know if I can work 3 jobs and still provide a dynamic education to your kids, to my students. And it scares me. And all I'm asking of you is to be good employers and protect your assets. Keep dynamic, intelligent, hardworking, driven teachers in your schoolrooms by offering your employees a fair contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Sandra Thompson in person. Welcome, Sandy.
Good evening, Anchorage School Board, Dr. Bishop, and ASD team. I am Sandy Thompson Wallace, president of one of the hardest working groups in the Anchorage School District, Totem Association of Educational Support Personnel. Tonight, I want to share with you a tale of numbers, as I know many of you can relate to numbers, as this district seems to be so focused on numbers anymore, leaving the people who make it successful behind and as an afterthought. 1,275, the number of bargaining unit employees represented by Totem. 67, the number of job positions represented within our group. 424, the number of employees who have been with the district 10 years or more. An additional 120 who have been with the district 20 years or more. 182, the number of Totem members who hold advanced degrees, doctorate, master's, bachelor's. 101, the current number of unfilled classroom support positions. 16, the current number of unfilled clerical positions. $13.97 per hour, the starting wage of a kindergarten paraprofessional working 3.5 to 5.5 hours per day, versus $15 as the starting wage at numerous fast food restaurants, adding in a signing bonus, or up to $20 at Carr's Safeway. $23.89 per hour, the top wage paid to our employees, most of whom have worked for the district for more than 15 years, versus $23 an hour for a brand new hired facility maintenance helper with a high school diploma. I could go on, give you more numbers, but to me, this district isn't and shouldn't be just about the numbers. It should also be about the dedicated, hardworking individuals who give you 110% of themselves every day to work with our students and families. Totem employees show up to work ready to create a learning environment for students regardless of their abilities. They care about their students, their families, and their colleagues. Many times they are the first to show up and the last to leave. They spend their own money on supplies to supplement areas of need in their classrooms, knowing that they won't be reimbursed, but because it's for the students, they do it anyway. Once again, I ask you, if not now, then when? When is the value that Totem employees keep hearing about from the district going to translate into a living wage and be recognized for the important contributions made every day on behalf of our students, our most valuable resource? If not now, when?
Thank you. Let's go to the phones. Toya Brown. Toya, can you unmute?
Hi, I'm Toya Brown. I'm listening to the conversation tonight, and we identified that the target and achieving learners in our district come from white households and households which are not economically disadvantaged. This information is not new to ASD. I hear the questions being asked in regards to how do we positively impact the demographics outside of the on-target group. I feel there is a failure in our school district and not with our children. I have spoken with teachers, parents, and administrators in the district, and there has been acknowledgement of blatant racism in our district, a lack of representation of teachers of color, anti-racism policy with no accountability of violation of these policies, and no transparency in racism reporting by ASD. It is not possible for children of color to achieve at an optimal level when ASD is not addressing creating a positive environment conducive to our children of color showing up and just being able to learn. You have heard testimony from parents and students alike of specific incidents with racial motivations in our schools that impact our children's ability to show up and learn. I ask that you please address these issues, and you will see the improvement you desire in scores outside of the currently achieving demographic, because you will be creating an environment that mirrors the environment that your achieving economically advantaged white students have. It does make a difference. I would like to also support better contract negotiations for teachers. No raises for 3 years is not acceptable. I have personally been moved to tears by some of the teachers' testimonies tonight. We are in a teacher shortage, and we are only going to make it worse. As a member of this community, not representing any association, I would also like to take time just to express some discontent with the displays today regarding pressing for a ruling on a null issue. It just felt like a waste of use of time for purely parliamentary flexing. I truly feel, as an example to the children present, we could all agree that just because you can do something does not make it the right thing to do. I hope we can truly do what's right and bring the focus to digging into the many moving issues we are setting before you as a community. I would also like to thank the president for moving past the issue as resolved, and hope we can move towards resolving some of these issues we're bringing forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Toya. Next, we have Dustin Darden in person. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Deemed appropriate toward it to fight vaccine misinformation. Like you have that right at all. Let's talk about who's really spreading misinformation here. So every post that you do online about the vaccine will be flagged as safe, except there are no long-term studies. There's no generational side effects. The short-term side effects are pretty debilitating and fatal, and all the animals died during testing. Does that sound safe to you?
Mr. Darden, are you going
Last
to
week, Rolling
testify?
Stone did an article.
Mr. Darden, are you going to testify? Are you going to address the board?
Could you back my time up, please?
No cases like that existed there, and the doctor
Mr. Darden, you need to address the board. It's public comment to the board, not through your phone.
That was Mindy Robinson.
And you need to wear your mask, sir.
That was Mindy Robinson, and she was, I kind of halfway anticipated your tyrannical motions of censoring my 3 minutes that I waited here for. And with that, God did lead this to be said. You know, those were facts about how you're guilty of pushing a bioweapon on children and muzzling their oxygen supply, which is a domestic terrorist, which you all are guilty of, the entire dais and executive board. You're all guilty of being domestic terrorists. Now, my friend William Topol was sadly his life.
Point of order.
Could you pause my talk?
Point of order.
Mr.
What's your
Darden
point?
is welcome. Mr. Darden is welcome to address the board. He cannot, will not attack staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. So sadly, my friend William Topol, he lost his life at Providence. I was outside praying, walking around recently, and they refused to give him the treatment that he needed. His funeral is going to be this Friday on the corner of 15th and C at the Assemblies of God Church, if anybody knew William Topol. So I do appreciate you interrupting my time so that that could be mentioned, because I figured you would, possibly 50-50. Also, Providence Hospital, you're guilty of murder, conspiracy to murder, and you will be held accountable. And all of you that are implicating this bioweapon injection, you're party to conspiracy against rights with the intention of taking human life, which is a penalty, which is being investigated by the good men and women that serve in the alphabet soup networks. I pray that you guys repent from your wickedness, and I pray for healing for those lives that are being lost.
Thank you. Next, we have Angela Butler. Angela? Okay, thank you. So, Larry Collins, I think. Welcome. You have 3 minutes. Either one. Whichever one you'd like. You can move that down if you'd like.
I want to thank you for hearing me out. First thing I want to say is I am not a teacher, but I do stand with the teachers that have been in this room today, that are online and that are outside. To paraphrase one of the things that you said earlier, Dr. Bishop, is the way that we are going to advance our math, our literary skills, is through the dedicated teachers that we have in this district. One of the things that has constantly amazed me is how much time the teachers put into their classrooms before school, after school, on the weekends. When you look at some of the statistics that Sandy mentioned a little bit ago as far as the salaries, somebody working at Fred Meyer Cars, Safeway, they're starting out right now. They've got ads on their front doors saying that they start out at $20 an hour. That works out to about $42. Walgreens, I believe, is paying $25 an hour. That works out to about $52K a year. Starting teacher with the Anchorage School District is at $52K a year. How are you going to maintain staff when I can run a cash register for the same amount of money? Y'all, I've heard teachers talk about insurance, class time, prep time, being able to grade the kids' work. Y'all are losing. That's what's happening. Right now, ASD, UAF did a study that showed that Anchorage School District is losing 10% of their teachers a year. Y'all keep hiring teachers. You're running out of teachers. Y'all really do need to maintain what you have. Give them the voice. Give them the ability to earn an honest wage. The totem employees, you're not even paying a minimum wage. When you come into negotiations, negotiate in good faith. Those teachers, those totem employees, they're there to serve the kids. It's your job to serve your staff. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That brings us now to item I on the agenda, Superintendent's update.
Thank you, Madam President. I have just a very brief update, just some 3 topics that have occurred recently. I do want to share those that wished greening well and were able to come out on a snowy day to the ribbon cutting that occurred October 14th. So thank you. That was a successful event. And if you need a school on your visit list, please head on into Eagle River to see that new school. The International Shakeout Day is on the 21st this year. So it's at 10/21 at 10/21. They try to keep it very, very simple. And just encourage everyone, we pre-register all of our departments and schools, and we participate. That practice year after year has done us well. And there was a mention of just those practices seem redundant until I guess we have an earthquake. So they do, I recall. And then finally, just this past week in the general leadership, you've heard it here tonight as well. There just is lots of ups and lots of downs. And so having students back and being, we had testimony here today in my school visits. There's lots of joy in our schools, in our teachers, in our classrooms, with our children, but it is a tough job, and that's the down part of it. In working with APA, just streamlining communication would be of assistance, and understanding the hardship was another topic. It did come up this evening, and I'll just throw it in that we actually do go out to schools from this building if you're certificated. Every morning, we facilitate a call to fill sub jobs with certificated people, and I am as well on that list. And last year, I was a Wonder Park person that went to park every Wednesday. We really discussed and put a name on it in regard to studying what they call the pandemic flux syndrome. There's never an end to it. And our initial surge capacity to be able to deal with an emergency is innate in us. In our fight or flight, we just take care of things. But at this point in time, the manner in which the pandemic has moved on has added additional stress, and they've actually coined the term now, pandemic flux syndrome. So we talked about what is it that we can do. In working with APA, just looking at some prioritizing of staff and resources to be able to set up our school days to target what matters most, and have the essential fundamental skills being taught, but be allowed to take extra breaks. Passing time, we talked today in regard to prep time. That is a serious concern. Just that 30 minutes when your students are away, when we have our specials teaching, many times we don't get that needed break. So looking at ideas and prioritizing to solve for that. I'll be coming back to the board with some ideas about how we can do that through this semester to move, hopefully get into a better place, especially with substitutes, employees, and the like, and absences just from the pandemic. So that's my update. I look forward to coming back with you soon in regard to a plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Any questions on the superintendent's update? Seeing none.
Madam President.
Oh, Carl, yes.
I don't have a question as much as a comment. It was mentioned during public testimony tonight. I've seen other districts in the U.S. Come up with incentives to identify and find substitutes in this year with everything going on. And I know I would be very receptive to trying to identify ways to bridge that gap, as we're hearing that's a big need. So I'm looking forward to that discussion as well.
Other comments? Yeah, Member Donnelly.
Yeah. Madam Superintendent, 3 years ago or so, we, in response to some complaints from parents, I brought up to the board that I was getting reports that not all our schools were saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And of course, we do have a policy regarding that. It's specified in AR 6115. And it's specifically that it shall be, every school we have shall do the Pledge of Allegiance in the morning over the intercom system. And so recently I got some more inquiries from parents that it wasn't happening in some of our schools. And I visited several schools where in fact it wasn't happening. And one of the schools was one that I specifically had brought up 3 years ago. So I know you reached out to them and advised them that they were required to comply with the existing, administration and board policy. What should we do at this point that schools aren't complying with the policy?
If you could report to me and offline and send me that notice, we can address it with them.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. Well, we're already in J because we're doing our comments. So we can take any board comments that you'd have at this time. Member Higgins, I see your lights on there.
It's easier than
And
raising your hand.
we'll just come right around when you're
Okay,
done.
thank you. First of all, I'd like to appreciate all the comments tonight from staff and of course just general public. A lot of passionate information and some good valuable information. One thing that was commented on, I was kind of impressed with, was having a base information in regards to the type of discrimination complaints that are raised. The state has a state statute that says in the state everything dealing with discrimination has to be reported to EEO, and they track it to ensure it's handled because it's that high a priority. And so I just proposed to the superintendent that type of approach has been very effective in addressing issues that otherwise never got addressed. And so if you had to report them, it got logged. It helped give insurance that they're being handled and we're getting a trend on whether things are going up and down. So I really like that particular state statute, and I think it has real value. So that recommendation I really appreciate. A lot of comments in regards to union contract negotiations. The best I can tell you is that we're listening. I think the worst part about this situation is staff not feeling appreciated because they're doing so much under tremendously difficult situations right now. And it's really disappointing to me that staff are not feeling appreciated because I realize what you're going through. Not having the subs, not having the staffing. And I'll just remember one comment in human resources, and that was the effective way of recruiting under difficult times is don't lose the staff you got. That's about what it does come down to. So I do appreciate that. I recognize the importance of it, and just to share that with you. And I'm most concerned about the morale, the stress that individuals are suffering from right now, and I appreciate that. I also attended the Grueling Middle School grand opening, and a very impressive facility. I do want to express appreciation to two students that gave me a tour. I was with that tour group. Anna, I hope it's blew up. And if it's not right, I screwed it up, but I think that's right. And Britton Nelson, both of them just outstanding representatives of the school. They gave a tour. It was very informative, very friendly, and I can't think of any better representatives of the school or ASD than what they did. And I like the fact that Anna is going to be working with special ed kids, as I recall. Britton's going to keep her options open, and personally, that's the way I was too. So I like both their enthusiasm and their dedication to being in there in the afternoon doing this. So my appreciation to both of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Donnelly, Holloman, any comments?
To a little bit to follow up on what Member Higgins said, I've watched some of the bargaining and I've listened to comments both from staff and from people approaching. And unfortunately, I think we have kind of a perfect storm. We have a year like none other where, quote, we're back to normal, but I think anybody will agree it's anything but normal. So staff's dealing with a lot of issues that no one ever really anticipated. It's consumptive, it's problematic, and there's a lack of resources for those things. And then when bargaining seems, quite frankly, to be pretty hostile, it has a real impact. For the most part, in my personal experience, the district and teachers are trying to do the same thing. They're coming at it from two different directions, but we have the same problems to solve. Unfortunately, one of the big ones is time. Teachers need time to do their work. It's a funny year. In normal times, one of the things that most people I think understand is teaching is one of those things where the actual time required to do the job never fits in the contract. And in most situations in the private sector, you have some way of dealing with that. you're just not expected to do things that you don't actually have time to do. In education, it's been that way for an awfully long time, that you just find a way. You take work home with you, you stay late. And I would hope the district would acknowledge that. District has a desire to train people up in programs that they think will make a difference to kids. That's incredibly valuable and important too. Solving it is not easy. There's not a magic solution on it. But I think we have to do something that shows respect for the time that staff is putting in, and somehow balance that against the district's needs. I think both groups will walk away dissatisfied like every other time in bargaining. But I think there is a way to do it where both sides feel respected and feel like the best possible solution has been worked out. It's just not what I'm hearing anybody say about the process that we've got going on now. I think it's very tough to change. I would hope that we could find a way to change the atmosphere of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Member Wilson.
I also want to share my appreciation for the work that our educators and staff have been doing. I try to say that every meeting because I truly do appreciate the work that you're doing to support our students, to support our families, and I know it's work. I truly do know that. So I will continue to share my appreciation for that every meeting. So thank you. I also wanted to recognize that on October 11th, it was Indigenous Peoples Day. I wanted to recognize the contributions made by American Indian and Alaska Native peoples. And one last thing I wanted to share is I had the privilege of touring our Gifted and Ignite program. And I got to learn about the work that's being done within that program to reach out to students around the district and identify students for that program that normally would not have been in the way things were previously set up, identified. And so I really am excited to hear about the progress that they make in reaching out to the students and identifying and supporting our gifted students. So I just wanted to give a shout out to those folks because I got to be behind the scenes and see some of the work that was being done, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Member Lessons, do you have any comments?
Well, now I want to go copy door and go do that, take a tour. I'm reflecting here that every person in this room comes wearing different hats. Tonight, I'm a community member, I'm a parent, and sitting at this seat, I'm a board member. And that means that I'm one of the 7 people who are empowered to do the most we can for our school system. And I think that's an incredible responsibility because these seats will come and go, but our system needs to sustain itself.
Thank you. Member Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I want to let the parents out there that the Anchorage School District does have a policy that it is the expectation that an opportunity shall be provided to all students and staff to salute the flag with the Pledge of Allegiance during morning announcements daily. So if you're a parent and you know that isn't happening in your schools, please contact me or contact the superintendent or anyone else. But if you hear about it not happening, as several parents did for me, contacted me the last few weeks, and turned out to be true that it wasn't happening. We don't, there's like 90 schools in the Anchorage School District. We can't know what's happening in every school all the time. But if you're a parent out there and you know this isn't happening, please let us know, because this is a policy of the Anchorage School District. The other thing I wanted to mention that I did submit a resolution to the president, and I believe it's being referred to governance, Madam President, regarding the letter that was sent on September 29th from the National Association of School Boards, of which this district is a member, to the Department of Justice, asking them to utilize the Patriot Act against parents who they believed were threatening school board members or other public officials at meetings. There was an analysis of the citations in that letter from the National School Board Association, and of the 24 examples they cited, 16 of them did not involve any threats of violence whatsoever. They were simply people that were excited or animated or advocated for their position regarding critical race theory or other things they didn't agree with. And I think it was very inappropriate for the National School Boards Association to send that letter. It was only 5 or 6 days later, that the Department of Justice issued a memorandum that dealt with the request of the National School Board Association. Anybody that knows how the Department of Justice works, that's extraordinarily suspicious, Madam President, that only 6 days after getting a letter like that, they would have a formal position on an issue. Usually it's vetted through the department carefully, and there's a lot of speculation out there that it was an orchestrated, coordinated effort, that it was all prepared ahead of time. In fact, the Pennsylvania Association of School Boards, which is the state parallel to our Alaska Association of School Boards, has now pulled out of the National Association of School Boards in protest to this inappropriate letter that they sent without clearing it with the members, their membership, which I never heard anything about it. I don't believe anybody in this district got any notice of it, or else we would have been allowed to comment on it or consider it. So I have introduced a resolution on this subject. I think it was highly inappropriate for the National Association of School Boards, and I agree with the Pennsylvania Association of School Boards that said this was counterproductive and made their job trying to bring citizens together much more difficult because of this request for federal interference with our school board process.
Thank you, Member Donnelly. Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. Just another reminder that we do have 2 subcommittee meetings tomorrow, 3:30 and 4:30 for communications and governance, finances on the 27th at noon. Did want to express my appreciation to the staff at Gruning for hosting Member Higgins and I in the community. We did take separate tours so I could get a question in. And lastly, I did want to express appreciation for everyone who took time out to come testify tonight. As a public servant, former public servant who's had to collectively bargain for a contract, I understand that words of support are always welcome, but simply aren't enough in and of themselves. So thank you, folks, and we'll see you next meeting.
Thank you. Dr. Bishop, do you have any comments?
No, Madam President, I've spoken enough this evening.
What about you guys over in the gallery? Any comments? I'd just like to briefly just thank everyone who showed up tonight to testify, to share your thoughts, to write your letters. Sometimes we can't respond to every single one, but I do try. I try to respond to every single one that comes to the board, and individual board members may also decide to respond as well. But these are difficult times. I don't have the answer. I wish I had the whole answer. I wish I had everything that you need, but I think together we will be able to figure that out. And like Member Higgins, it breaks my heart when people tell me they don't feel valued. And then I'm searching to try to figure out what can I do. And then I realize this is not a I, Margot thing. It is all of us together. No matter what job we're doing, we got to figure this out. And I really do believe we will figure it out because our kids deserve it. And each one of you deserve it. Each employee deserve it. And so we gotta steady ourselves and do what we gotta do, keep talking to each other, and we'll make it there because at the core of our existence are the kids. So I thank everybody. And with that, seeing no other, everybody has had a chance to comment. Good night.